Paolo Salvadelli. 8 kilometres to go to the finish, and he's still got a slight advantage of around about 12 seconds over the group of three. Here is Ivan Basso ripping it up here, looking over his shoulder, Phil, to see what kind of damage he's doing there to Gilberto Simoni and Danilo De Luca. He must be wondering what day it is.
Well, De Luca's got that elastic in stretching it, and it's pretty pliable right now because he hasn't gone yet. But I tell you, I think Basso must be kicking himself now because he really has been the man of the race, and this is a final pressure point by Basso. He has opened the gap on De Luca as we move a little bit further down here because this is Sella here, and he's coming up lower down the slopes. But I was just saying, Basso has done everything right, allowed this man to beat him on the descent, and there's still a chance he's not going to win the day.
Well, Danilo De Luca here, he's just got to get himself once again into a rhythm that is reasonably comfortable for him to make sure he doesn't look too much time. And Ivan Basso, Phil, is putting the gap now between himself there, and you can just see Gilberto Simoni, but around the corner, Paolo Salvadelli keeps looking back. He's made a good operation here, Salvadelli. I think initially he thought he was going to win the stage, but now all he's got to do is just hope he can hold on when this train of CSC goes by Ivan Basso.
Well, this is a big push, the final big push of the day here by Basso. He's used an awful lot of energy up today, attack and counter-attack. Outwitted by Salvadelli on the way down, but might well repair the damage on the way up to the line. Remember, we're climbing up to the finish now. Salvadelli knows that they're coming at him. He had about 20 seconds at the start of the climb, and Basso has sliced that.
Well, actually, Basso hasn't quite got rid of Gilberto Simoni yet. There is a large gap, but it's not a gap that is a definite gap between the two riders. Simoni is an experienced professional bike rider. You don't win the Giro d'Italia 2 times without being tough when it comes to mountaintop finishes. But Paolo Salvadelli's also won their race previously, and he will be hoping now that he can just get onto the slipstream. I'm surprised to see Gilberto Simoni under a spot of bother because let's not forget, a couple of days ago, Ivan Basso really had to turn himself inside out, Phil, to do a very good individual time trial.
Well, that was a definite attack by Basso. He's got rid of De Luca, he momentarily got rid of Simoni, but he hasn't all of a sudden caught up. The gap closed dramatically, it's opened again. Salvadelli's gone away again. There he is up the road.
He's only just around the corner.
9 seconds. 9 seconds, and Simoni is recovered.
Simoni may well just grapple back. Now, this is the man on the left-hand side, Paolo Salvadelli. He was thinking about just moving himself up in the overall classification here this afternoon, but Ivan Basso is thinking about getting himself the Maglia Rosa at the end of today's stage. This is a man who many people are tipping as a future winner of the Tour de France, and if he was to ride in the Tour as dominantly as he's ridden today's stage, I would say he's got a very good chance of doing that. But first of all, he has to catch back to Paolo Salvadelli.
Well, Basso has given a lot of effort on the roads today of the mountains of the Giro, and will they cost him dearly, or will he profit by them? Because he's still got the 2 most dangerous climbers, I think, in this year's race, one in front and one just behind. But he is coming back to Paolo Salvadelli, and Paolo, his heart's going to hit his boots now because look at the face too of Simoni. He is such a pure climber, this man. Looks good. He's a very small man. He always looks quite large on television, but when you meet him, you will look down on him. But he's a great climber.
And he's tough, and he's brave and courageous, and he does not want to lose the back wheel there of Ivan Basso, and it looks as if it's all coming back together. We've just gone inside of 7 kilometres to go to the finish, and I think we're going to have, once again, a 3-man leading group.
Salvadelli, Basso, Simoni. 2 of them have won the Giro before, and it's the other one, Basso, who's been the man of the day, and here he comes.
He just looks cool, doesn't he? Calm and collected. He's looking at the man in front of him, and in fact he doesn't have to look very far because he's onto the wheel now of Paolo Salvadelli. And a little bit further back, look at Simoni here. He's all over that machine. He really is hurting, but he cannot give up. He needs to keep himself in contact if he wants to try and win the Giro for a 3rd time.
Well, that's hurt Basso, that chase, because I thought he would have attacked Salvadelli immediately, and he can't do that. He's just taken his slipstream. And funnily enough, Salvadelli hasn't reduced his pace. He's just getting on with it as if Basso hadn't even arrived there. Now he's looking at him to see what's going on. You can see there that Cunego and Stefano Garzelli out to over 4 minutes. So their race for the Maglia Rosa is done.
It's a long way back.
And this is going to be 3 riders at the top because the pace has steadied and they've insisted on Basso pacemaking. So Simoni will get back. Here we go down the road, 4 minutes. Coldo Gil, his tour is also done for the King of the Mountains, I think. looking as though he's puffing and blowing. There's Cunego and Garzelli. They're the big losers on the stage today, that's for sure.
Now's the push. I think, Paolo Salvadelli was quite clever there. For around about a kilometre or so, he sat up and rode at a slightly easier pace so he could recuperate a fraction. But now Ivan Basso seems to have recovered. He's gone to the front. And although he's the one dictating the pace, Gilberto Simoni has now come back. 3 riders leading the event, and I can't see, looking back down the road, any sight at all of the Maglia Rosa, but here he is.
He's a bit further down the road though, because there's nobody ahead of him. And I think this is going to mean, if it continues like this, that in fact, after a great show of defiance, De Luca is going to lose the race lead. It's a question of where it will go. It should, in theory, go to Basso.
It should go to Ivan Basso at the end of today. He's the man who was in second place overall at the start of the day. Paolo Salvadelli will move up a long way in the overall classification, quite possibly into third place, because I can't see Damiano Cunego losing, Danilo De Luca losing all that much time at the end of the day. He's got himself into a reasonable rhythm. What he must not do is panic and push himself too far into the red zone.
Well, these boards are counting down the kilometres to the finish, but they don't always tell us which kilometre to the finish. We're really in the beautiful part of Italy right now. The clock's counting on that board as well, so this will be to Danilo De Luca when he gets there. 6 kilometres to go now. Just 6 kilometres, but this is a tough climb. This is averaging 11%. Here comes De Luca under that board, nearly half a minute down. And he doesn't want to lose much more. He's going to be out anyway of the pink jersey right now in favour of Ivan Basso.
But what's important is for him to stay in the top 3 in the overall classification if he can. With a good ride, a defensive ride here, he could still maybe only drop down into second place. But if there's a lot of pressure in the final few kilometres, then Paolo Salvadelli will certainly see himself leap right up in the standings.
Oh, we're into the mountains. We have a fairly easy day tomorrow. Should be a day of the sprinters after the battle today of the mountains, and then we're back in the high mountains for a couple of days. And we've still got in the last 4 days some mountain top finishes as well. So it's a tough sting in the tail, the Giro this year, as it always is, especially when you start in the far south of the country where there's undulations but no mountains. Paolo Salvadelli here, first time on Team Discovery. No Lance Armstrong to worry about because he is the leader of the team. And Salvadelli now been forced to follow. He must be a little bit disappointed. He took a great gamble there. It hasn't worked out. But Basso has had to use a lot of energy to reach him.
He used a lot of energy, a lot of nervous energy on the descent as well, but he's not getting any help. You see every now and again he just flicks his wrist. I think he's looking for some help to come. Come on guys, we've got a good situation here. We can get rid of Danilo De Luca, still only 25 seconds. And although De Luca has been slipped off the back of that group, he doesn't look to me, Phil, as if he's a man who's panicking. He's in his own rhythm, he's in his own little world here on the final few kilometres of this climb, and he's actually not losing all that much time.
No, he's doing pretty well, I think, and he hasn't lost sight of that. He's a wise man. He knows you can't ride at other people's paces on mountains. You've got to ride at your own. 5 kilometres to go. Always a chance to recover as well. And Basso has established himself as the number 1 favourite now. Gilberto Simoni has established himself as the number 1 favourite for Lampre. And back in the frame, Paolo Salvadelli, because I really didn't think he was going to be a big challenger this year.
This man going through the same points, 5 kilometres to go, and in fact he's grappled back a single second there, so he's not panicking at all. He's keeping himself in a status quo with these 3 riders, but Basso is a man completely on his own. Look at that, there's a car has just gone, in fact that's a raffle of wind that's gone through there, and it's actually blown a lot of dust up into the face of the man Danilo De Luca. This is much further down. That's Cunego on the far side there. He's certainly not going to win the Giro d'Italia Phil here this afternoon. The man helping him, as always when he's in difficulty, Andrea Tonti. And in that group as well, Charlie Regalis, the British rider, is there alongside Stefano Garzelli.
Charlie's there to look after Stefano. He's doing a great job today. Now, look at that lovely painting. Looks as though it is an oil painting. It's all blurred.
Except for the fact that something's moving in that oil painting, and this time it's nice to see that the blue and pink jerseys come to the front. Gilberto Simoni has now come to do a little bit of work.
Yeah, this is
getting the dust out of his eyes.
That's sad, because the sweat must be stinging those eyes as well right now. He's doing well, good sign of resistance. He's a great bike rider, De Luca, very popular man.
Punchy style there at the front of Gilberto Simoni. He's trying to find a little bit of extra gas. Salvadelli, he's quite happy just to accompany here this afternoon. He's used all of his energy on the downhill section of the course. A big risk. I think he would have been happier to have started this climb with around about a 45-second advantage. In fact, he only started with something like 15 seconds, which is wiped away by Ivan Basso.
Basso's going to try and finish a great day off here today. He's in the pink as we speak because he's the leader on the road right now. This is going back 4 minutes now. The troops are gathering around Cunego to try and keep him going. He must be feeling a little bit demoralised, knowing that these boys are going so well, and Gilberto Simoni is driving up here as well. What a beautiful picture that is. And Ivan Basso, after his inspired time trial to finish behind Zabriskie, is now looking at the Maglia Rosa.
He's looking up the road there, counting away the kilometres. There are the three team managers in the cars behind. Sean Yates will have been very impressed by the performance of Paolo Salvadelli on the downhill section of the course, and now he's probably wondering whether or not his man can stay in contact. I do feel that Ivan Basso must try and distance himself. There's the man who started the day in the Maglia Rosa. That is Danilo De Luca, leader of the Pro Tour, a dominant rider on the start of this season with incredible wins in the Ardennes. Simoni seems to have recovered. It's getting to the slightly steeper part of the climb here. This suits the little climber.
I'm just wondering whether Salvadelli stopped working with this group. He made his attack, they brought him back, and he says, right, you two can carry on again now. And I'm wondering, I was about to wonder if he was going to attack, but maybe I should have gone for Basso, because Basso has made a desperate acceleration, and he's got Simoni. If he keeps that one, that will be the end of Gilberto Simoni. He got him at the right time. Simoni's having to dig deep now. Even the best climbers in the world can suffer, and Simoni is going to have to suffer.
Well, he was caught out by that acceleration there. It's almost 5 minutes back to Cunego and Garzelli. Their Giro d'Italia is over. And look at the way Simoni is all over that machine. He's hanging onto those bars. He's gritting his teeth, saying, I'm a champion. I've won the Giro d'Italia before. I have to stay in contact. This man here is riding a lonely race, and he keeps looking around. Every time he sees the long straight roads in front of him, he can see those men. It's 28 seconds the time that he's lost here so far. That is not astronomical.
That gap is still opening, Paul, and I've got a feeling here that Simoni might well be going. Basso wants him to go. There's another kick, and look, Salvadelli's had to go after him. What an incredible acceleration there by Ivan Basso. He was the under-23 world champion back in 1998, Ivan Basso. That was over the hilly roads of Holland.
Simoni's in trouble.
He's gone there. That second acceleration has finished.
He's just put it onto his outside chainring there, and he's really desperately trying to stay in contact, but that gap is starting to appear. Salvadelli looks over his shoulder. He's actually using a much smaller gear than Ivan Basso, which I think is why he's been able to respond to these accelerations.
Spending time with Lance Armstrong.
I think that could be what it is. He's learned this spinning that Armstrong has developed over the last few years since he came back from testicular cancer back in 1999.
What a great ride this is by Basso. This man is clearly suffering, but he's suffering in an attacking mode, trying to rid himself of everyone today. It's been a duo struggle. I think he's got Simoni this time. And watch out, because Danilo De Luca is still holding tempo, and once the elastic does snap, De Luca might well climb back up to Simoni here.
Concentrated
Two
effort
left.
Now. Just down to two men. Basso, he's not looking confident, keeps looking over his shoulder. You see, he's launched so many attacks here at Paolo Salvadelli, and he was surprised, I think, not to have got rid of everybody on this final stage. And that might be the psychological blow when it comes down to the final few metres, because he, I think, has used a lot more energy than anybody else on this stage.
Well, look at the inside chain rings there. I'll tell you what, Paul, when you think about it, 3 kilometres to go. It seems an awful long time ago since we saw 6 kilometres, and that gives you some idea how steep this climb is.
Well, in fact, Paolo Salvadelli has only just put it onto the outside chainring. He's been using a much smaller gear all of the time. Basso, time trialling. For Basso, he's in a bit of a quandary here, Phil. He's got to get as much time as possible as he can over Danilo De Luca. It's 10 seconds back to Simoni, 37 seconds to Danilo De Luca. And I think tactically, Salvadelli is not going to push quite that hard, because all he's got to think about is trying to win himself the stage.
Well, these are real time gaps right now. And again, Simoni has gone back up the gears on this false flat to see what he can do. De Luca will also come back into his own on this false flat and might begin to close the gap. These two aren't exactly helping each other here. It's huge turns being done by Basso, and occasionally Salvadelli gives a helping turn of the pedals.
I think it's just to stay in front of Gilberto Simoni. I think he's gambling here, Paolo Salvadelli.
I'm beginning to fancy Salvadelli still to win.
Well, he's gambled a lot on the downhill section of the course. He started the climb with an advantage of around about 15 seconds, but he knows that Ivan Basso cannot slow down. Ivan Basso can't start to play around in this situation because he's got to get time over that man there. We caught a glimpse of Danilo De Luca. I think Salvadelli is probably psychologically in the best position.
Well, they know as the crowds get a little bit thicker, racing through the village here, heading up towards the summit now of the Zoldo Alto. Basso has made this a key stage for him this year. He's obviously eyed it, decided this is where he was going to try and open the gaps. The only man who's defied him is Paolo Salvadelli. 2 kilometres to go. And although Salvadelli was caught, I still fancy him for the victory now because he's making Basso do all of the work.
And he still looks pretty punchy. Look at him getting out of the saddle. He's still got that fluidity and that suppleness in his pedalling action. Whereas if you look at the man in front, Ivan Basso is losing a slightly larger gear. He's still opening up the gaps. It's now 45 seconds to Danilo De Luca. His days in the Maglia Rosa are starting to look as if they're coming to a close.
These are the men today who tried to take part in the Giro d'Italia, and in the end they've been cracked. And the two riders who have done it, well, primarily one rider, Ivan Basso. The gadfly today is Paolo Salvadelli, who tried to win the stage. So far he's had his wings trimmed, but he's still in with a shout as we climb our way up.
He didn't have his wings trimmed on the downhill section of the course where he absolutely flew down to the start of this climb, but ever since then it seems to have turned around to the advantage of Ivan Basso. He is now looking like a very solid leader of the Giro d'Italia because he is riding himself into the Maglia Rosa, although a little bit further down Danilo De Luca will think a little bit later on of whether or not he can get himself back into this race, but 54 seconds is starting to look serious.
And he's also Simoni is actually still pulling away from De Luca, so any hoped for return there seems out of the window now. It's the 1, 2, 3 who are in the lead who are going to cross the line in that position, but which one will win? And the odds might be on Paolo Salvadelli now. 1,300 metres as they continue the climb to the summit. There's Simoni. He's going to finish third today for sure, which will give him a top 3 position overall and a likely podium place. But remember, it's still a long way to race in this year's Giro d'Italia. Just on 2,000 kilometres covered by the end of this day. Some 1,500 still to go.
Yeah, but of those 1,500, I would say a large proportion, probably 30% of those are absolutely uphill once we go across the top of the Dolomites and finish with some very nasty days in the Alps. Ivan Basso, though, Phil, looks superb. He's just sat there rock solid on his machine while all of the time to stay in contact. Paolo Salvadelli has to get out of the saddle, just keep accelerating, just holding on to the back wheel of the man that he's been accompanying since the bottom of this climb.
1 kilometre. And Paolo Salvadelli here, a man who's never won a road race since the year 2000 when he won the 3rd stage of the Tour of Trentino. He's won the time trial since then, and he's won a couple of GCs, including the Tour of Italy itself. This could be a big return. He keeps spending time out while he has his bones healed up. But he's in a good place because he hasn't come through for a couple of kilometres now. He knows the importance to Basso. I'm just wondering if Basso might have used an awful lot of energy today. He's used an awful lot. Has it been too much is the question.
There's Simoni a long way back, around about 20 seconds, the difference between these two and Simoni. But Ivan Basso today is in a difficult situation. He would like to win the stage because it's a big mountaintop finish. But of course for him it's much more important to get time over all of his rivals. And that's what Paolo Salvadelli is playing on here, just sitting there in second position. Although Salvadelli, I'm quite sure he's not showing it, but inside his body must be going through all kinds of turmoil.
There's one thing's for certain, we can be sure of. Basso is the next pink jersey wearer of this year's Giro d'Italia because De Luca has lost too much time now. Basso has been promoted from second to first and he'll have to defend tomorrow. Tomorrow may not be a problem, it's a reasonably flat stage, but then he's back in the mountains and he won't have too many teammates to help him out, and he probably is well aware of that. Salvadelli's done nothing this last couple of kilometres. I reckon when he sees the line he's going to sprint away.
Well, he's bouncing, looking over his shoulder. He still looks fluid. He still is using a much smaller gear than the man in front of him. probably 2 teeth lower than me. Do you see him look down there, just checking, make sure everything was lined up? Meanwhile, Ivan Basso just ticks away, those legs going with the regularity of a metronome, just keeping himself further and further ahead of Danilo De Luca. He wants to make sure that he's got big time chunks over everybody else in this race, because he could be wearing the Maglia Rosa for an awful long time. 300
metres to go. Basso's had no choice but to keep the pressure on here to gain time. That's the penalty you play when you race for the big lead in the National Tour. And Paolo Savardelli has known all about that. He's following here as long as he can. I can't believe it. And here comes the sprint. And Basso started it quite early, I think. He's gone quite a long way out. And it's a little bit of a downhill now, so he needs to sit down and slip the gears up. But it looks as though Paolo Savardelli, and he doesn't win many sprints in his life, he's got this one. 5 years on, almost to the day, he finally wins again.
But at the end of the day, if Ivan Basso didn't get himself the stage win, he will get himself the Maglia Rosa. But what's important now is to look back down at the finish line and see what the time checks are. Here is Gilberto Simoni. He will move up in the overall classification at the end of the day. That's 22 seconds for him. And now the man who started the day in the pink, Danilo De Luca, for me, Phil, has not done a bad job, because most people thought he would get blown away in the mountains. He stayed in contention.
Well, I think he's had a great day out, in fact, Danilo De Luca. He's not a climber of the quality of all three men ahead of him, yet he rose to the occasion. And it was just the rapid acceleration of Basso up to the finish that cracked him. And also, must be said, it cracked Gilberto Simoni as well. But Danilo De Luca will be out of pink, but will still be in with a good shout of a high finish at the end of this race. Unfortunately, there's still rather a lot of mountains to come.
Just a minute and 1 second, but look at this. He looked a lot smoother on the right-hand side. He was certainly in the right gear when it came up to the acceleration, but Paolo Savardelli, well, he's got to have a long memory, hasn't he, to remember the last time he crossed the line with his hands in the air like that.
5 years, but who cares? He's back, and that's a great win for the team Discovery as well, and for Captain Sean Yates, who's in control of the team over this 3 weeks here in the Tour of Italy. It's his new job. It's Assistant Director Sportif for Team Discovery Channel. There's the stage result. Basso given the same time. Simoni at 21 seconds. De Luca at 61. Van Huffel is the new climbing sensation coming out of Belgium. As we now go back to the podium, come on, at least smile, because it was well worth it. He tried to win the race on the downhill. He had to do it in the sprint.
Well, I think a little bit of a hard day out for him, but Ivan Basso made the most of it and got himself the lead, and Savardelli, Phil, is up into second.
And those four riders today who took the race to the race are holding now the top 4 places overall. Simoni won't be too happy with fourth, though, and he's looking for some big time to catch up with this rider here, Ivan Basso. But he's got the pink jersey, first time ever in his career. And as I say, I don't think he'll have a problem defending it now as we move on to stage number 12. We go from Alleghi to Rovereto. Just under 180 kilometres the ride today. Fairly flat. We've got some early climbs, as so often is the case, but good pros tend to neutralise the early climbs. It's when they get to the flatter roads where they appreciate the run-ins towards the finish. Time is running out for the sprinters, because we're going to go in the hills and stay there for a few days very shortly. Stay down on the River Valley roads here as we work our way down. We're right up in the northern part of Italy now, but we've managed right here on the east coast before we enter the high mountains again. A little bit of flat countryside, and the sun is out. Let's join the action as they head up towards the finish.
Well, the sun is out and the train is blue and white. It's Alessandro Petacchi's Fassa Bortolo men on the front end of the main field once again. Paolo Bettini not too far away, moving up through the middle there, trying to see if he can get himself a little bit closer to the Maglia Ciclamina. I'm looking to see if I can spot that little bit further back, Eric Zabel. Eric Zabel there on the left-hand side, moving forward. He's going to look to see if he can get himself the win here this afternoon.
Giorno is in green now as the leader in the King of the Mountains, and Sven Kraus is still the only leader of the Intergiro, so he's making that a major aim. He's only a young rider, and he's got his target in life here. Marco Vello's heart rate, not surprisingly, is running at 96%, and it should be, because he'll be the rider right in front of Alessandro Petacchi.
Well, they want to try and get this right for Alessandro Petacchi, who nursed himself through the mountains yesterday with all the other sprinters. Ultimo kilometro, the last kilometre. Filippo Pozzato down there for a quick step. I think he's looking after Paolo Bettini here this afternoon, but Petacchi is nicely set up by his riders, down to just 2 men in front of him. And there again, the golden helmet of Paolo Bettini is never very far away.
The man we never really call a sprinter seems to be intruding in all of the sprints today. Still in that Ciclamino jersey is Robbie McEwen, but he's washed away from this one. Petacchi looking for another win if he can get it. He's got the team still. He's got 2 teammates left to lead him out. And in fact, McEwen is a little bit out of position again, but he does have a habit of getting back into position. But this might be a different result today. That's Robert Forster of Gerolsteiner trying to move up here. And Grio, the big sprinter who's taking over from Graham Brown, has suddenly delivered a lead out. And Forster can't even get on his wheel, but Petacchi can. And that's gone the wrong way today because Petacchi's used somebody else to get to the line, and he's got it. So he gets the win over Paride Grio of Penaria. And that's his best ever result in a stage of the Giro. And a very good win. And I'm not sure, Paul, but I think Galvez there of Elis Baliras hung on for possibly 3rd place.
Well, just have a look at this. Look how far back Grillo comes back from. In the orange jersey there, coming from about 7th or 8th position. He's caught everybody unawares, but no panic. Look at this. Immediately straight into the slipstream. There goes Alessandro Petacchi. Waits a moment, and then the turbo starts to whistle, kicks in and comes up alongside him. And by the time Alessandro Petacchi gets to the finishing line, he's got a gap over the front end of the main field and everybody else, and cruises to another easy victory. The man who is the new king of the sprints at all of the Grand Tours.
Well, that's his 2nd win so far. A little bit late in getting going, but he seems to have slipped into top gear now, Petacchi. But where was Robbie McEwen? I can't see him at all in this picture, the Ciclamino jersey. Oh, he's off to the far right, just bobbing in. There's his head, there he is. Concentrating, but made a very late run for that one. He's paid the price. And we'll wait and see if he's kept his lead in the points there. He should have done.
He should have done, but the big problem with Robbie is if it goes wrong, he never has a teammate up alongside him. Grillo was 2nd, and it was Galvez in 3rd place. And once again, McEwen getting himself top 10 in 6th, and Stuart O'Grady up there in 7th.
Well, no change in any of the leaders' jerseys. Basso will stay pink. McEwen has kept his Ciclamino jersey. Rucano, King of the Mountains, and Kraus, the blue jersey of the Intergiro. And Petacchi, a familiar sight, is saluting the crowd there. 18 seconds the gap for Basso or Savadelli, a minute 4 over De Luca. No change at all in the top positions on this stage. It won't be the same when we get onto the mountain stage now, which takes us through the 2300 kilometre point as we get onto stage number 13. Lucky for some.
Doesn't look all that happy, does he, Ivan Basso? Looking out there, probably worried about what's up in store next.
Yes, and well he might now as we move on to stage 13, the 14th day of the Giro d'Italia. We've had one rest day. We're a couple of days away from the 2nd and final rest day as we now get into the mountains yet again here. And there's some nasty climbs. A 2nd category climb, a 1st category climb at the Passo di Sella. And we have 2 other 1st category climbs as well. So this is a big test now, especially for Ivan Basso, who had a fairly easy day yesterday, but the previous day he certainly used a lot of energy. And the boys will be looking for any possibility of weakness. Heading to Sant Ulrich, a familiar name among cycling followers, but no, Jan Ulrich won't get the opportunity of winning here.
Giovanni Lombardi there just on the wheel of Ivan Basso, resplendent in the Maglia Rossa, the man doing the most of the work on the front. The former great team time trialist Andrea Perron, he's just setting the tempo, and all of the riders from CSC are looking rather good here. They've got about a 7-minute deficit on an early morning breakaway, but none of the riders in that early morning breakaway really of any danger in the overall classification.
Well, the man who's got into the breakaway and causing all sorts of bother up there is Ruffiano, who's building up his lead in the King of the Mountains competition. He's winning all of the climbs at the moment. But nobody up there is affecting the overall destiny of the pink jersey, because the best placed man is Juan Manuel Garate, and he is almost 7 minutes down overall. So the battle is right here. CSC look as though they've got everybody under control, and Basso is sitting there amongst his teammate. That's Blaudsen in 2nd place, and just keeping an eye on everyone. This is the Passo Gardena at the moment, 3rd climb of the day that they're on. When they get over the top, 117 kilometres will have been covered, Ruggiano has led over the 2 previous climbs.
Well, that's important for him. This is not really a long climb. It's only 6 kilometres in length. Ivan Basso looking pretty good there in the Maglia Rosa. His teammates all alongside him right at the front end. They are a team that in the first part of this race, Phil, were very quiet. We hardly ever saw them at the front end of the peloton. Then all of a sudden, once you're in the lead, the whole morale of the troop completely and utterly changes, and they're all now on the defensive at the front end of the peloton, defending the lead of Ivan Basso, which they think he's going to take all the way up to Milano.
For as long as they can, of course. This is Andrea Peron who's doing the work here at the top of the second category climb. Boys have gone over the top. We haven't seen anything of the leaders for a while now. Our cameras know that this is where the attacks must come from to decide who's going to be leading the race tonight. There is Basso, looks pretty cool. The whole team haven't been hit at all yet because they're right up there, all of them.
I tell you who's done a great job as well this afternoon is Dave Zabriskie. He was basically brought into the event here to look after Ivan Basso at the front end of this race. He was brought in as a rider who could defend on the flat stages, but he's actually turning around to be rather good when it comes to the big mountain stage, and I think that is all to do with rising to the occasion and defending the leader.
And just to update you with the starters today, because there were some big names didn't come out to play, including Stefano Garzelli didn't start, Stuart O'Grady, Jan Kersipou and the other sprinter Robin McEwen, all deciding not to start along with Baden Cook. So Pataki has started. If he gets an easy few days, I don't think he'll have anybody to beat him in the sprints.
Well, all of the sprinters, I think they looked out of the window this morning up to the skies and thought, uh-oh, I've got that allergy coming on, the allergy that Mario Cipollini used to have, and that's going uphill. Paolo Salvadelli looking pretty good in second place in the overall classification. Now here's a little move going from the front group, and that is Rujano.
Rujano's won all 3 climbs. He went over the top of the Gardena on his own, just ahead of Ivan Parra as well. And so, knowing now he's scoring very, very well, this is a great move. He could well be winning the King of the Mountains title just now. And this is Cauchioli here.
Well, certainly laying the foundations. This is a man who over the last 2 years has won a race in Venezuela called the Tour of Taquira. A pretty mountainous race, and this year, remember, we expected him to ride well in the Tour de Langkawi. He did that because he finished in second place in the overall classification.
Well, Cauchioli's had his great moments in the Giro, but unable to go with that attack put in by Rujano, although Rujano, there he is back in the pack now, and another counter. This is Parra now.
Well, Parra is a man that a lot of people feel has got a great chance for the future. He's actually related to Fabio Parra, the man who won the King of the Mountains classification at the Tour de France many years ago, a man who was part of the great Café de Colombia professional squad. As we can see here, this is another move. This is a team, let's not forget, Phil, Colombia Cell Italia, who came in with a wild card into this Pro Tour sanctioned event now, the Giro d'Italia. Only 2 teams came in as wild cards, Cell Italia Colombia and of course Panaria, and they've both, I have to say, been rather aggressive.
Well, Parra there, I think, is the younger brother, in fact, of Fabio. He's 29 and a half years of age now, so he's could well be the case. There's Danilo De Luca back in his white leader's jersey as Pro Tour leader. His days in the pink will have done him well in that competition. As the tempo clearly rising to the occasion now, this could be another sign of a big push here. Time to chase down some of the leaders perhaps. So we go back up to the leader, because this is Parra who's going clear right now.
Good move, and he will have the possibility of a teammate defending behind as well, because Rujano is in that group behind him. Now this is a good move. Let's have a look back, and he has got a nice advantage. A little bit of a mistake, I think, by the man who leads the race, because his accelerations here, Ivan Basso, Phil, have actually isolated him a little bit, because I can't see, apart from the teammate who was with him there, very many riders left from Team CSC.
Now this is amazing. The first and second overall are together. The 4th place in white is just behind, and just behind him in the blue strip there is Simoni. So the top 4 overall are in control just now.
I think the only man that is left with Ivan Basso there is Frank Schleck, the Luxembourger. He was just in front of him. Now that could be rather important when we come down to the latter part of this race. Cunego seems to have recovered a fraction. He's up towards the front end of the group, but Team CSC, looking at the back end of the group, are certainly noticeable today by their absence.
And just look at the size of that group. 10 kilometres. This is Fabio Parra. This is his brother Ivan Parra. Fabio retired quite a way back. Once finished 3rd in the Tour de France, but this is Ivan. and looking very, very good. And this could be a terrific result for Sella Italia if they get this one home first. The boys will be drinking champagne tonight, especially the Aussies, Russell Van Hout and Trent Wilson. This would be a great result. But further down now, this is the race here. 3:35. Well, they pulled it back an awful lot. They have been away a long time, that breakaway. It is splitting up. They should be starting to see the stragglers pretty soon here.
Well, they shouldn't be too worried about that leading group because it's really the men that they need to watch in the group behind. This is a good move here by Parra. He's got the gap around about 15 seconds over the group of chasers, but you can be absolutely certain that Jose Ruano is just going to be sitting there, and if anything goes wrong at all with this move, Ruano will be the man to take over.
Well, Parra's had his moments in life. He's not a big winner. He had a couple of years with the Once team out of Spain. He had a couple of years with Kelme. But now he's riding for the Columbia Sella Italia team and seems to be at home.
Well, he has ridden the Tour de France in the past as well, although he finished in 46th place. And a lot of people did tip him for the top. And I think Manolo Sainz, when he brought him on board the Once squad of those days, thought that this man was a man who could finish in the top 10 of the Tour de France.
Well, he did indeed, and right now he's having a marvellous ride because we must be inside 10 kilometres to go for the leader on the road, and he's trying to make his bid for the finish. We're on the Passo Pontives, which will take us up towards the finishing line. That's the group there containing Basso, with one teammate left to look after him, and the others all following. That's the problem when you get the jersey, then you have to do all of the riding at the front, and there he is, and right on his tail at the moment, Paolo Sabadelli, who's been in the same position as Basso in this very race in the years gone by. There's Schleck.
Well, Schleck looking pretty good. This is Parra at the front end of the race, but he seems to be losing a certain amount of his advantage. He's got around about 15 to 20 seconds over the remnants of that group he was with just a few moments ago. Cunego there on the right-hand side, riding that little bit better this afternoon. The white jersey there is Danilo De Luca. De Luca enjoyed his days in the Maglia Rosa. Now I think just trying to keep himself up in the top 10 overall. This is again Ivan Parra at the front of the race, and he's getting a little bit more comfortable, I think, Phil, with the flattening off of the course, but maybe not, because there's a group of riders coming across.
Well, as we're watching the battle here for the day's win, there is a group of riders coming across here. That'll be Kokoli trying to get over the gap as well.
It's Garate, that's Riano.
Gerate's had a good day. He's been in the breakaway all day. This is the remnants of the original breakaway here, still holding their own. But what I was going to say, Paul, is just heard that Yoshiba Bolocki has abandoned the race, which is rather sad. He's not been able to refine his condition after that nasty crash on the road to Gap in the Tour de France a few years ago.
It's been a long, hard battle for Yoshiba Bolocki to get himself to the top. Villar here we're looking at, he's actually just come back from that leading group of riders, and still it's Frank Schleck on the front, the only remaining rider from Team CSC up alongside Ivan Basso. In fact, they're closing in on that leading group of riders to 3 minutes now.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to see them before the end, because the way those riders seem to be riding, the win of the stage is certainly going to go to one of those riders who was in that early morning breakaway, massive breakaway,
19,
which at one stage had huge proportions over the main field. But that's all changing now.
Well, Sven Kraus also went in it, which means he will keep his lead in the blue jersey into Giro competition. There were 19 got clear. There are 8 left ahead of the Basso group at the moment, and this man has flown the coop and is trying to win it on his own. And right now, I think he might have done it.
He might have done it, but he's still only got around about 15-20 seconds over that chasing group. But in that chasing group is his own teammate. I think somebody there was just trying to tickle off the front end of this group. There's Garate. This is the chase group. There is Ruano. Next man down at the back there in the Team Phonak colours is Vladjevic.
These are the boys who were in that breakaway, and it's been a great day out for number 43 at 8 kilometres to go. Parra's just up the road.
I think they're going to get him.
I think they might. That's the 8 kilometre banner just there, and Rugiano has had a great day, read it perfectly, massed all of the points. The only climb he's lost was the penultimate one, the Erbe, and Garati took that off him, but other than that he's had maximum points today.
Well, the Erbe was a very important one to win, because that was the Trofeo Marco Pantani.
This is the chase group here, I think. There's a change at the front.
This is the main field.
Well, where's the pink jersey gone?
Well, that was Schleck going through. There's Gilberto Simoni. I'm just looking to see where the pink jersey's gone here.
Well, I think he's down the back. I've just seen him in the centre of the group. Well, there's Simoni, and I wonder if he knows. Now, why has he dropped back there?
Well, Simone sent his men to the front. That's Villa on the front for Team Lampre. Simone's moving up into third, fourth place. Cunego has moved forward. Now, this is not a good sign. There he is. Halfway down there is the pink jersey of Ivan Basso. He's probably just having a quick look because up alongside him there was Paolo Salvadelli. But there are no more CSC riders in the group. In fact, that is Frank Schleck. Frank Schlepp has just stopped at the left-hand side of the road as if somebody just punctured both of his thighs.
Well, he was the last man, I think, in the group for CSC. The whole team have now been written out of the script. They've done their job perfectly well, but they haven't been able to stay the distance. Now they're leaving the pink jersey of Ivan Basso totally exposed to attacks.
This is Emmanuel Sella in the orange jersey. Look at the way he bounces out of the saddle. He's a very good climber. These men will not be thinking about winning the stage here this afternoon, but more about trying to move themselves up in the overall classification. There's Daniel Atienza on the right-hand side in the Cofidis jersey, while Paraphil, he hasn't given up. You know, the group behind him of 4 riders is still only between 10 and 15 seconds in arrears. And this man, if he looks over his shoulder, he can see them. But you know what? He's taunting them, saying, come on then, it's only 10 or 15 seconds. If you want me, you come and get me, but I'm not waiting.
Well, this little climber is so small he's had to put his number on his seat pin because he can't fit it on the frame. His legs don't exactly look powerhouse legs either, but they're doing the job here. I think we can use the phrase here, dancing on the pedals, because looking over his shoulder, these boys are nearly on, but not quite. Calcioli, Garate, and the man of the day, Rujano.
They're down to 3. They've lost one more rider. Calcioli can feel the big mountain top finish coming to him.
Still a long way.
It's still a long way to go. 7 kilometres to the summit, but they haven't given up. Calcioli's out of the saddle. Garate has had a fabulous day out on the road, and they're still hovering at 10 seconds from Ivan Para. Now, I tell you what, Phil, if they get onto his back wheel, watch out for the counter-attack coming from Jose Rujano, because he is the man who will hurt them with a launch of a searing attack.
Calcioli trying to relive his halcyon days, I think, when he finished third in the Tour of Italy in 2002. He's had a couple of stage wins as well. He's had a 9th, but he needs to really try and close that gap now and wave the flag for Crédit Agricole. Even so, it's nice to see the French team has got themselves a man who can ride for the overall, even if he has to come from Italy rather than France. But this is the man who is doing all that's necessary right now. Whether he doesn't panic, got to keep control of his rhythm here, not push himself into the red zone, because if he does, he'll die and they'll be on him.
Well, he's not worried
at all. This is a real pursuit.
Well, he isn't worried. He's forcing them to really dig into their reserves, to pull themselves back to his back wheel, because he knows they're actually in a very good tactical position, Colombia Selatali, because in that group we've got the best climber of the Giro, Jose Rujano. If it all comes back together, you can be absolutely certain that little green jersey is going to bullet off the front of the group at the moment that the junction is made.
Well, he's still keeping that rhythm going, just mastering his own pace here. Ivan Para climbing in the true tradition of the riders from Colombia. They came to the Tour de France, they couldn't handle the flat roads, but boy, nobody could handle them in the mountains.
Just over on the right-hand side, I think there's a plan developing here from Team Lampre. I've seen Francisco Villa is putting a lot of pressure on the front. Gilberto Simone is there with Damiano Cunego up alongside him. Moving up to the first 5 or 6 places as well, you can see Paolo Salvadelli. But we have got Amalia Rosa here this afternoon, who's been completely and utterly isolated. If he has a mechanical incident right now, Phil, he's going to be in a serious spot of bother because he has no teammates to help him.
Well, the guy is riding up there as well. We normally will commentate on Christoph Brandt, but now we're talking about Wim van Huffel of the De Wieteman Lotto team. They seem to have found themselves a new great climber here. He's climbing with the best right at the sharp end of that group. This is the second group on the road, the remnants of the early breakaway of 19. Calcioli, Garate. Many people tip Garate for a podium finish in Milano. I'm not sure he can do that now. He was the best man placed in the breakaway today. Got the most to gain for sure.
He's right. I tell you what, this is quite remarkable because they cannot close down the last 10 seconds. This man Para is just hovering in front of them. As we go back to this main group here, this is the group of all the serious contenders. Danilo De Luca in the white jersey, leader of the Pro Tour, looking very comfortable, but they are starting to reduce in numbers. There's Van Huffel looking over his shoulders. On his shoulder is Damiano Cunego. Over on the far side there, you can see Gilberto Simone. Simone looks as if he's getting ready for one of those searing attacks which has been his habit over the last few years.
Well, I'll tell you what, no Belgian has won the Giro d'Italia since 1978, and it wasn't Eddie Merckx. It was
Johan de Munk.
Yeah, we still see him around too.
I only know that because I raced with him. Same team.
Well, not
he was
in
a
the
great
Giro
man.
d'Italia.
No, he was just a little bit older than I was, but de Munk was a fantastic rider, learned an awful lot racing in Italy. In fact, he came up in those days, it was regarded as only the team leaders were supposed to win. And there was a lot of information that, in fact, Johan de Munk was ganged up against in one Giro d'Italia when he should have actually won it. He came back the following year, and his teammate Roger de Vlaeminck was the man who I think helped to conspire to make him lose.
Good heavens, accusations 30 years on. As we continue to see the attacks being countered here now. Now, this is an interesting move here because this is Samuel Sanchez, who's a good climber, and he's being joined here by the climber from Elas Baleares.
Well, that's an indication everyone's starting to get a little bit twitchy now. This is Cunego now. Wait now. This is a setup for Gilberto Simoni. Cunego going to the front, trying to set something up for Simoni. He didn't set it up for very long before Gilberto took off.
Well, Gilberto Simoni, they mass to the front, and look at the cleverness of Paolo Savidelli.
Yeah, but look at the inability to respond there of the Maglia Rosa. There is a gap there. In fact, you can see slipping back through the group there is Ivan Basso. He has to respond to that attack, Phil.
Basso would never have ridden down near the back. He's got Cunego right on his back wheel there. He suddenly disappeared from the front just before Frank Schleck cracked himself earlier. But he would never have ridden down there because you always like to give the impression to the boys who are close to you that you're going good. And he is in trouble here.
He's in trouble, but look at the way Salvadelli pounced on that. That's why this man has got that incredible nickname Il Falco, because he just pounces on anything. Simoni's looking for the big one today. He's looking to move up higher in the overall classification. The orange jersey there is Sammy Sanchez. But Salvadelli looks very comfortable. In fact, I think he's also been a man who's changed his position over the last couple of seasons on the bike. Now, let's see. That is Danilo De Luca a little bit further back. Now, this is the man who started the day in the pink. He's not showing any signs of weakness, but certainly he must respond to an attack by the men who are well up alongside him in the overall classification, Salvadelli and Simoni.
Well, that's the Colombian Ardea who's just in front of him. But what a difference 3 days make. 3 days ago, Basso was hurting Paolo Salvadelli and dropping Gilberto Simoni. Now the same two riders, and here they are on the left of our picture, are going clear of Ivan Basso. Well, I wonder now, did he try just that little bit too hard in the mountains of 2 days ago?
Well, he's not showing any signs of weakness at all. He's up alongside there, Damiano Cunego. But Salvadelli has taken up the pacemaking. He feels confident here this afternoon. He only really needs a handful of seconds before the summit of this climb if he wants to get himself into the Maglia Rosa. And he's in fact putting Simoni into difficulty.
Well, this is Salvadelli racing for pink right now, and he suddenly realised it, I think. There's the the fast pedalling cadence, similar to his new teammate, Lance Armstrong. Where's Simoni? Let's have a look. He's put Simoni in difficulty. Simoni is a very tenacious animal. He's not going to crack too easily. But this rider, I think, has gone, Paul. I think Basso has gone.
Well, let's not forget the battle at the front. This is really quite remarkable because Ivan Parra is still at the Testa della Corsa, but only still holding on to about 15 seconds advantage over the chasers. But the drama is just a little further down on the slopes because Paolo Salvadelli, I put currently very close to tickling the Maglia Rosa.
Well, Salvadelli now is racing for pink, and I wonder if he came to this year's Giro d'Italia with really that dream in mind. He was thought about as one of the favourites, but not the favourite. Everybody called Basso as the man to beat, and right now Salvadelli is doing just that. Basso is in trouble here. Whether he's feeling ill or whether he is in just a fatigue situation, because he's with Ardea just there.
Cioni as well.
And that's Cioni, yeah, Dario Cioni.
He's not showing any weakness. His body language is looking fairly comfortable, sitting with his hands on the top end of the handlebars, while this pedalling action here from Paolo Salvadelli is certainly much more urgent. He certainly does seem to have adopted that very high cadence of Lance Armstrong, and it seems to be doing him quite well.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's free to take the lead in this race now, and also the responsibility, because that's a 6 kilometres to go point here for Ivan Basso, not riding like a rider who's going to close any gaps. He's just got one rider on his back wheel as we swing up to the leader. This man has defied all attempts to catch him, and Ivan Para, who left the breakaway, is still holding the remnants of that breakaway at bay. Breakaway which has been on for most of the day today. This is the first category climb as we head up towards the finish. This is where the race story is, left and right, because now the Team Discovery rider Savadelli is pulling away from Ivan Basso and could be the next wearer of the Giro's pink jersey.
Well, he was only looking for 18 seconds at the start of the day. The man who started it all there, wearing number 2, Gilberto Simoni, set up initially by Damiano Cunego, went right out on the attack. But you know what? He couldn't stay on the wheel of Paolo Salvadelli, who is absolutely possessed. But let's not forget, we're only coming to the end of the second week of racing here at the Giro. There's still a lot of tough days in the mountains before we get to the end.
There certainly are a lot of hilly days left before we reach the end here. And over the top he goes. He gets the points this time. It won't give him the lead, though. That's safely on the shoulders of Luciano now. But Ivan Para didn't break away to think of winning the climb. He's thinking of winning the stage here. The clocks say 13 seconds, and Luciano got second place, so he's really stitched this up today.
Well, that's amazing. Para has ridden at 10 to 15 seconds off the front of this group, Phil, for the last 5 kilometres. He's certainly not looking back. He's certainly not waiting for them. And he's got his head down now. It's slightly flatter, but it still kicks up before we get down towards the finishing line. He now has to solo. He's got 35 seconds, but more importantly, we need to know the gap between Paolo Salvadelli on the left-hand side and the Maglia Rosa of Ivan Basso on the right.
And the fact that Atienza here, Ardia, are all hanging on nicely, and that's Marcus Foten there, the Gerolsteiner rider, who's having a very good day. The poor old man in pink, even though he's tired and quite depressed, I would think right now, is still being left to do all of the pacemaking. And that is Gilberto Simoni. We're pulling back. He's being picked up, I think, by Danilo De Luca.
Well, De Luca is riding a superb Giro d'Italia. He's had a fantastic season since very early on where he was quite dominant. But Ivan Basso, now the first time we get a chance to see the pain that is starting to go through his body, while this man's pedalling action, Phil, is completely and utterly different. It's energetic, it's supple, and it's going round at a very high cadence.
2 days in the Maglia Rosa of Basso, and it could be the last 2 days, because it could be changing shoulders now. There's a total difference in the attitude to this road, and Savadelli is on top of his game at this moment. He's not interested who's ahead. He's just thinking, with every pedal rev, I am going ahead of Ivan Basso.
Started the day in second place in the overall classification. With a ride like that, he's actually moving ahead of everybody else who is anywhere near him to challenge the lead of Ivan Basso at the start of the day. Ivan Para, on the other hand, Phil, is just making his way towards the finish, and he's still only got 15 seconds over the group behind him. But that 15 seconds corresponds to, at this speed going uphill, around about 100 metres, but they can't close it.
They can't close it. They're at 100% of effort. They just can't get any closer. He's got a real chance he's going to stay away. As you can see, officially the mountains are now behind the riders today, but they're still going uphill.
Well, that's officially, but that's not the practice, because it still climbs up towards the finishing line. This is a great move here by Paolo Salvadelli, and the thing about Discovery Channel was they didn't come to the Giro d'Italia with the top team. They came, I feel, because they were obliged to come as part of the new Pro Tour system, and they have a fairly weak team. But Paolo Salvadelli has ridden a very sensible first week of racing, and now he's got himself into a position where he could be pulling on the pink jersey at the end of today's stage.
Yeah, they were also hoping for a lot more out of young Tom Downsell. He's not that young anymore, but he's still a young one in the appearance at this height of the sport. And he's gone out with what appears to be a slight knee injury, so he's going to have to try and sort that out. He didn't want him to continue because of possible further damage, but this would have been a good race for him to do well in, so really the power now is on the shoulders. Tirolongo is the rider here, picked up by Paolo Savadelli. He was in the breakaway. He's coming back as well.
I've always thought that was a fantastic name for a bike rider. Tirolongo means long turn, and he certainly didn't do a very long turn on the wheel of Paolo Salvadelli, who is just ticking away at those pedals. He's getting into that corridor of noise now as he gets slowly but surely closer to the finish. Quick look over his shoulder. Nope, Tirolongo is not there anymore. Looks down, looks for a bit more energy to come forward from the engine room. He has now got himself also to the top of this climb, and he's going to go there inside of 4 minutes. That's not important, because in fact the men in front of him are a long way behind in the overall classification. What he's thinking about is the time that he can open between De Luca and Simone, and probably more importantly, Ivan Basso, because everybody before the start of this Giro d'Italia had Ivan Basso as the number one favourite to win.
Well, Basso had one great day to take the pink jersey, and now he's getting his bad day. They say you always get a bad day. You just got to make the most of it.
Just got to hope
this rider's having a good day.
You've just got to hope that if you do have a bad day, it is not in a mountain stage, because if you lose time on a mountain stage, you can lose huge chunks of time in just a few kilometres. This man is still keeping himself reasonably in contention. I think he's lost around about 1 minute by the time he gets to the summit of this climb to Paolo Salvadelli, but he won't be able to take the risks on the descent, because although it levels out, it is still pretty much a false flat up towards the finish line.
The beauty of Italy, it looks like a valley road right now, but it isn't as we race on towards the finishing line here at Ortisei. Ivan Parra could be establishing a win here, because he's certainly shown the defiance. If he does win, by the way, it'll be the first time we've had a win by a Colombian since 2001, when Carlos Castro won the 14th stage. He's going a day early, this man, stage 13.
Well, he's the winner of the stage is inside the last kilometre, and I say the winner because I don't think anybody's going to get anywhere near him. As we look now at the man in the Maglia Rossa, he really does seem to be under a spot of pressure, but he's actually not lost himself all that much time. He's still got a chance to recuperate before he gets to the finish, because he's looking at an awful long way to the line.
Well, he knows now that he's lost the time gap he had over him overnight, and he's losing that pink jersey, but think long term, live to fight another day, and that's what he's doing right now. Here's the crowd line, music to the ears of Ivan Parra as he continues up towards the line. Does that say 5 kilometres to go? No.
500 metres
500 metres, beg your pardon. The old eyes are going.
He's inside that now. He won't start to celebrate. In fact, that gap that was 15 to 20 seconds has extended quite a far amount over the last few kilometres. I think they just desisted because they weren't able to get onto his back wheel. And it's going to be absolutely a big win for Ivan Parra, and a great win for this team, Colombia Selle Italia, who was one of the teams brought in at the very last minute as a wild card.
Absolutely right, Paul, and that's the trouble with the Pro Tour now. Many teams will no longer get their chance at these big tours if this is the way it's going to be in the future. But it's been a long, long day in the saddle to ask of the riders. 6.5 hours of mountain climbing, and Ivan Parra has been ahead for the vast majority of those 6.5 hours. At one stage there were 19 of them, now there's just one, and he gets the victory. He's going to be delighted. This is a huge result for Colombia Selle Italia as he races up towards the line, celebrating nice and early. Why shouldn't he? No pink jersey awaits him, just first place on a stage number 13 in the Giro d'Italia. Enjoy the moments while it happens.
Well, I think the joy is obvious to see there. That's a great win for him, a great win to Colombia, and I'm sure that that's been followed live on Colombian television, because in Colombia they love their sport and they love their cycling. Ivan Basso, though, is carrying a big weight on his back here this afternoon. Ruyano, I think, is going to make it a 1-2, or is he? Because Garati just comes up to get second place, Ruyano third, and just holding on, Cocchioli gets fourth.
But that was a great day out for Ruyano. He got third on the day, and he's well clear in the King of the Mountains competition. But this is the race for the moment, as Paolo Salvadelli has slipped Ivan Basso. The clock really starts when he crosses the line, and as he races in, this has been another superb day for this man.
Simone and De Luca just coming in around about 10 seconds in arrears, but here is the Maglia Rossa there. He's not looking like a man who's got a very comfortable pedalling style. He's overgeared, and that's a sign that he's gone through difficulty here this afternoon. The clock is still ticking. I thought he was getting up towards the finishing line there, but he's not been able to stay with the group that he was with just a few moments ago.
He's really blown up in the last couple of kilometres. Our camera's never shown this. He's been dropped away here. He's going to be over a minute for sure behind, and that's a big loss today. As the sprinters come home, Valjevec, Kessler were in that group, Vladimir Belli also in the early breakaway.
Well, he's looking like a broken man here, Phil. You see how the shoulders now are not quite as proud as they were on the earlier kilometres of this climb. They've arched down a fraction. He's cutting right in towards the barriers if he can, but he just does not have the power in those legs. This is not a question of trying to keep the jersey on your shoulders. This is a question of just getting to the line, and it is more than a minute since Paolo Salvadelli stopped the clock.
1 minute 8 seconds. They might round it up or down, but that looks like his loss here for Ivan Basso. There must be a story behind this overnight. With Marcus Fulton there being propped up on the fence after a great ride as well, but Ivan Basso now being ushered away. There'll be no need to go to the podium. Nothing to pick up, I'm afraid. It's a question of getting him in the car and saying, what happened?
Well, that's the job of Bjarne Riis. He has to go to the riders' hotel room this afternoon and try and get his man back into some kind of form, back into some kind of mentality to fight back. Let's not forget, there is another long time trial to come.
Well, there's the result of the day. Para ahead of Garate, Ruggiano, Cauchioli, Valjevec. All of those riders in the original breakaway of the day. Savoldelli was the man who was best of the rest. That's rather nice, that, for a man that likes chocolate, Paul. You should be in there.
Well, it is. It's actually not chocolate. It looks like chocolate. It's actually stone, and I hope he's got a nice amount of excess baggage to take that home.
There is the new overall classification. 50 seconds now, the lead of Savoldelli, the next leader of the Giro. Ahead of Ivan Basso, De Luca is into third place. Well, you thought he'd look a little bit happier than that, but now, of course, he's in the hot seat. And it's his team who will have to do all of the work over the next few days if he's going to keep the lead.
He has to think about, what am I going to do with the team? How is the team going to defend me here? He's lost Tommy Danielson, who could have been a help in the mountains.
And also rider Hesjedal, the Canadian, he packed in today as well. So let's go on to stage number 14. As now Team Discovery have lost 2 riders here at the most crucial stage of the race. And this is also another long day here, Enya to Livigno, which also keeps us a little bit in the lumpy area of this lovely country. And this is going to hurt them today. Look at this contours now, not for the nervous this. We don't stay in the valley all the way. You get to the end of the valley, you go over the mountains. The Stelvio is on the menu today as we continue to make the Foscagno and on a descent down into Livigno. Let's join the action again.
Well, early on, not a surprise, Damiano Cunego going in a move here. But I think what's more important, the little rider from Venezuela in the green jersey is looking for maximum points once again.
Yes, and he's been getting them too, because on the Fascinetto at 39 kilometres, Ruggiano was on his own. He's now back in the pack just a little bit. He looks as though he's under pressure now, but he's got to get tired soon, surely.
There you get a chance to see the Maglia Rossa. The new Maglia Rossa, Paolo Savoldelli, shadowed there by, you could just spot Ivan Basso. This is Vladimir Belli wearing number 82, a man once disqualified from the Giro d'Italia for punching somebody in the nose, and that wasn't bad because he was going uphill at the time and he was put under pressure by the Simone hooligans. Fortunately, that seems to have disappeared.
9 riders shaping the race early on today. Looking back here as they're trying to split this up now. Ruggiano is a man on fire. Hey, this is Ivan Para again. Well, I don't know where he found the legs from, but this is Para on the move again. He was in the first 9 riders to escape, and Sella Italia, the pair of them now having a great time, throwing this jersey around.
Well, these riders don't care at all about the overall classification. Just looking a little further up the road, though, we can see getting himself maximum points very early on. This man, who comes from Venezuela, is turning out to have no fear at all of the long distances. He's trying to get himself, again, maximum points at the top of this climb. Got the Maglia Verde on his shoulders, the green jersey, as leader of the King of the Mountains classification, and that's a lot more points in the bag.
I'll tell you what, this team has grown with stature and confidence. Look at that, happy, yes indeed. Keep on picking up the points, and this jersey will be all yours before we get to the rest day. He's not even going to push home the attack. Well, it's still a long way to go. He's going to wait for the others to do their share of sprinting and then rejoin here. This is the De Luca group. The pink jersey now on the shoulders of Team Discovery's Paolo Savoldelli. They are saying, by the way, that Ivan Basso was not feeling at all well yesterday. Well, we'll wait and see. Iliano was the rider in second place, and Cunego here getting 10, 6 and 4. So we're heading now towards the big mountain of the day, the Stelvio Pass.
Well, the Stelvio Pass going to go up very, very high indeed. Filippo Pozzato there, and this is rather a surprise because in the early few kilometres of the Stelvio Pass, the first man to get dropped there was Ivan Basso. And look at the time difference, 18 minutes to Ivan Basso. I think today he has disappeared away from the top end of the overall standings in the Giro d'Italia, and he's just going to have to wonder whether or not, Phil, he's going to stay in the race.
Well, I think you could say that. We've switched straight to that group here on the way up here. Now, Ivan Basso as we get up to the snow line, losing some 18 minutes. And there he is, he's stopped in fact. Now, is this the moment of truth where he climbs off? Because they said he's got some sort of stomach problem. Bjarne Riis is getting out the car, and in fact he's not packing in, is he? Because they're putting plastic on for the descent down.
It's Andrea Perron with him. I don't think, you know what, this man is not going to walk away from the Giro d'Italia. He's more than 20 minutes behind the leading group of riders. Ivan Basso there in the middle, getting the black raincoat on to keep himself warm on the descent. He has been suffering from some strange intestinal problem, but he will not abandon the race. And the teammates, they're all alongside him.
Blauten is off to our right, the champion of Denmark. He's also waiting, you can't see him. Boy, are they wrapping him up. He must have some sort of cold or bronchitis or something, but he's not going to give up, and I think that's a sign of a great rider.
Well, this is a rather brave move by the man there. You can see he's got his black jersey on to keep himself warm against the elements, and just look at how cold it was up there. Ivan Parra, though, well, he's not too worried about the cold, is he? Because he's got himself a lead at the front of the race once again.
So dropped on the Stelvio, way behind on the Bormio, and Basso is now out of the race as far as the overall goes, but with a great show of determination, he's not going to pack in and leave by what they say, the little door. So hats off there to Ivan Basso, because it takes a lot of courage to go on when you've been leading the Giro d'Italia. Meanwhile, up front, Ivan Parra is having a great day out yet again. 2 days and a chance now of another stage win. Surely not.
Well, that's always very difficult to do when you come to the big mountain passes. We're looking back to see what the state of play is a little bit further behind him, and once again it's very similar to the state of play just 24 hours ago, because the man in the group defending the chances of his teammate is none other than Jose Rucano, although they've got different men with them this afternoon.
Change of colours as they're now heading over towards the last climb of the day, which will be the Foscagno. They topped this at 195 kilometres, so there's still a little run to go, and Parra has made his move, leaving a leading group, exactly a carbon copy of yesterday. 22 seconds on a small group and 3 minutes on the next group, and that's a much bigger time gap.
It's a much bigger time gap, but I don't think, once again, the group of the Maglia Rosa are too worried about any of the riders present in that leading group of men who've got themselves an advantage through the mountains. I think the big story has to be the disappearance from the top 10 overall of Ivan Basso, who's completely and utterly crumbled. And I'm actually wondering a little bit about the sense of Bjarne Riis keeping him in the event, because after all, this man has to get himself back up and recover to ride for the Tour de France in about 6 weeks' time.
Well, you know, in modern-day cycling, Pantani was the last rider to win both the Tour of France and the Giro in the same year, 1998, but I think it's a big ask now. Here's the rider who's at least enjoying his mountaineering days. We've been up in the snow line over the Stelvio. We've seen Basso in big trouble there, and that gap is going to grow for sure, because he's obviously very, very weak at the moment. This has been a disaster this weekend for him. Looking here now as we move on to the final climb of the day, Foscagno. Massive height again, 2,300 metres. This is higher than the Col de Tourmalet in the Tour de France again, and an average of 11%. 20 kilometres to go, and he's just enjoying his day out.
Well, they're in a very good situation once again, as they were just 24 hours ago, Colombia Silitalia, because if this man messes up, well, then they've always got Jose Rucano to take over behind. Damiano Cunego was on the attack early on. He was in the early move of the day. He got himself some King of the Mountains points. He's certainly not the leader anymore of the Team Lampre, but he's actually slipped back to the group now and being picked up by the group that contains the Maglia Rosa of Paolo Salvadelli. There's Gilberto Simoni just a little bit further back. Vladimir Belli, he was also on the attack early on today's stage, as they too now head up towards around about 20 kilometres to go. This is the chasing group of 4 riders, and there is Rucano just sitting on the back. And in fact, Parra's got himself a more sensible advantage than much better than he had yesterday at this stage of play. It's just inside of the 1 minute mark.
Well, these are the next 4 on the road, and Salvadelli is beginning to look only at a couple of riders now, and primarily just one rider. The whereabouts of Gilberto Simoni is his only challenger. And Simoni is just riding down the back here. Cunego now is the team helper rather than the team leader, last year's winner. No, that's not very complimentary, I don't think. That
says the doping of Salvadelli is polenta, which is rather a nice pasta made out of potatoes, and that's probably quite true because you can eat very well when you come to ride the Giro d'Italia.
You can eat very well if you don't ride the Giro d'Italia in Italy, as far as I'm concerned. This is a wonderful country. It seems to have just about everything. If you like good food, good wine and great cycling. There's Simoni, still riding well. Cauchioli. This has been an interesting group, and Sergei Honshaw, amongst the people who've retired today, we've heard of. Gone now, Aitor Gonzalez, after his moment of inspiration a few days ago. We haven't seen him since, and he's retired.
Well, Wim van Huffel is in that group, looking very comfortable, and the Belgians are starting to talk about him as the next new big stage race star for them, and he's going to see himself move probably into the top 15 at the end of today with a ride like this, accompanying all of the greats. Damiano Cunego, this year in the Giro d'Italia, turning around and working for team leader Gilberto Simoni, who now must be wondering whether or not he can win this race, because in front of him the only man he really has to worry about is Paolo Salvadelli.
Honshaw, Cauchioli, Simoni, Gerate and De Luca. De Luca's having a great tour. We just don't see him as a major climber, yet he's hanging on in there and holding a very high place overall.
And not a bad ride by Charlie Waggelis either, to stay in contact with the riders on a stage like this. He'll be there to try and look after Danilo De Luca for as long as he can. Cunego, last year's winner of the Giro d'Italia, this year the Super Domestique for Gilberto Simoni. I don't think they're too worried about the presence of that leading group of riders, but Phil, if they keep letting Jose Riano get away on stages like this, Riano is going to see himself move up quite high in the overall classification, and he could end up being a threat.
Well, I'll tell you what, he's got nearly double the points of anybody else in the King of the Mountains now, so he's no need to worry too much about winning that competition. He's got to get to the finish, of course, but he's really built such a lead in his last 2 or 3 days in the mountains, and Ivan Para is his nearest challenger, and he's his teammate. So they seem to have got that in the bag, which is extremely good for a wildcard team. They weren't sure they would get it, but Selle Italia are part sponsors of the Giro d'Italia, so I would think that would help when it came to a little bit of wildcard selection. There he is, having his second great day in the Tour. We're high up again, as you can see, not too much grows up here, 2,000 metres. But Ivan Para is proving yet another enormously good climbing style here as he comes up.
Incredibly talented athlete. He's got 47 seconds over the group that he was with, containing his own teammate, and around about 3.5 minutes over the group containing the Maglia Rosa. I don't think there will be a chase in earnest to try and pull him back, because he's a long way down in the overall classification. He's just basically looking for individual glory on these mountain stages. He'll take a back seat over the next couple of days once we get onto the slightly flatter lands, but he'll try and do something special over the last few days once we get right up into the top western part of the country and we go towards the Alps.
Well, overall, he's just about behind overall what Basso is in real time right now, around about 20 minutes. So he's not going to climb too far up the overall classification, but he's certainly laying claim to a second successive stage win. And Basso, no further news, I'm afraid, but he's got to be approaching 30 minutes now.
It's a big loss for him this afternoon, and psychologically a bitter blow for him and the rest of the team, because he felt that he was the man who was going to win this, but that was certainly an indication yesterday when he lost over a minute on the mountaintop finish that there was something not quite right with Ivan Basso, who just days before had looked like nobody was going to dislodge him from top spot.
Well, these are the 4 nearest to him. And Ivan Para, not going to help at all. Very happy with the situation. The team's making a few bob, I must say, because of their fine riding in this last 2 days. Just 4 of them coming away together.
Like Osa just sitting in the back there for Ile Baleares. These men shouldn't have to worry too much at all about the main field. They've got themselves... This group is still 3 minutes in front of the Maglia Rosa group, the Maglia Rosa group of Paolo Salvadelli. But I do wonder which riders from Team Discovery Channel are going to be up alongside Paolo Salvadelli to look after him. He's going to have to be very clever tactically whenever we go up into the big mountain passes. And look at that time gap there now. It's a minute 13
he's pulling away
to Selle and the rest of that group, and he's certainly extending an advantage.
He's just pulling away from them. They've all been out front for a long time, but this man just loves these mountains. I think of all the things that one would like to be as a top cyclist, mountain climbing must be the one discipline to feel good at, because they make it look so easy. Para's had a magical period of a couple of days this year in the Giro. It won't help him get near the pink jersey. He lost far too much time in the time trials in the earlier days. but he's now just 24 hours away from the next rest day, and then the last very tough 5 days of this Giro when it resumes. But this has been a weekend to remember.
It certainly has been a weekend to remember for Colombia, but I tell you one thing about the Giro d'Italia is it's always a sting in the tail. It's always the last few days, and this race can always get turned upside down. Very often in the last 48 hours. This year we've got an individual time trial and then a very difficult mountain stage just the day before the end.
There's the tunnel way up the road there. Takes about 3 minutes to get there if the timekeepers are right with what they're telling us, as this is the group now which is also making time on the climb. The snow here, not so much actually, because at this time of year I thought it might have been a bit heavier at 2,000 metres, but it seems to be part of the global warming, I guess. There's Paolo Salvadelli, will feel very happy with the situation right now. Basso is no longer a name to be carried on his handlebars. He can tick him off, because today he certainly has lost the tour. For the leader, it's on the way down, heading towards the finish. These are the main chasers, led by Valjevic, Ruggiano, Osa.
It looked to me as if Dario Cioni was in a spot of bother there too, in the lime green jersey of Liquigas. He seemed to be unable to follow the pressure of that group, which was being certainly ripped apart by Damiano Cunego. Cunego must be thinking about whether or not they can dislodge Paolo Salvadelli, who doesn't have any teammates at all alongside him. Now this is the acceleration for the summit of the climb, and look at Riano all over the back wheel of Valjevic.
Well, he'll want to take him on in the sprint if he can, just sneak a couple of more points at the top of the climb. Cunego showing for the first time, I think, the class that won him the race last year, telling the motorbike to give him some more room. And in fact, Damiano Cunego is going to feel very happy about this, because he's the perfect teammate. In fact, there doesn't seem to be any animosity between Simoni and Cunego. I think it's the press try to develop something which frankly is not there.
I think last year Cunego was just too good for Gilberto Simoni. He couldn't do anything but just accelerate away from everybody else on the summits of these mountains, and that's what gave him the win in the Giro d'Italia. But this year he doesn't quite seem to be the same man, and I wonder if he's just trying to hold something back. Maybe they've changed his preparation to have him ready for the Tour de France, where they're saying he will participate.
Well, the Italians will cheer anybody who's in the lead. And this is a nice ride up to the summit now for the Colombian Ivan Parra. More points. It'll consolidate his second place behind teammate Ruggiano in the King of the Mountains. Ruggiano is just too far ahead. Don't think can be caught all of the way now to Milan. Let's hope he gets there, of course.
That's the most important thing. I'm sure he will. He's riding very consistently. He's only 22 years of age, Jose Ruggiano, as we get up to the summit of this climb. And you can see he's not too far away from getting himself maximum points, and they'll be almost certain to put money on his teammate getting second place.
There's the green flag flying at the summit. We continue on the way.
On the descent now, Ivan Parra. He's going to take a lot of risks if he can on the way down here, because the most important thing for him is to try and conserve as much of the 1 minute advantage he's got over the chasing group. As we get a look here,
watch this. They get a little bit excited, don't they?
Oh, they certainly do. They get a little bit too close sometimes. He's making his way up. Nobody would like to create an accident for a rider like this, but certainly the tifosi, the cycling fans in Italy, get a little bit over-exuberant sometimes, especially on the mountain stages.
This is Valjevic here. Surely Ruggiano will try to beat him to the line and snick the points. There's the clock counting since the leader, Parra, started his descent. There'll be no offering of assistance, that's for sure, because Valjevic can pack quite a good sprint if he gets down to the bottom, and he wouldn't want to hand the stage to him, although it'd be a great result for Phonak, I must say.
The gap is starting to extend. The last time we got an official gap, it was about 47 seconds, and I think next time we stop the clock, it's going to be a lot closer to 1.5 minutes. And Ruggiano there in second place, he's just going to sit back and just defend, because he's defending two things here. He's defending not only his lead in the King of the Mountains classification, but he's also defending the possibility of 2 wins in a row for his team, and of course for Ivan Parra.
Yes, a terrifically good day out, to say the least. There's the top, 1:31 the gap. This is life on the chase group now, thank you. As we're looking now at Damiano Cunego here, setting a very fast tempo indeed. helping his teammate Simone and running away from everybody else except Savadelli.
This is not a very big group, and I tell you once again, the man impressing me in the Giro d'Italia is Danilo De Luca. He's had a very difficult couple of seasons, but this year he really does seem to have come right back to the top end of the sport, and De Luca is also very much present in this group. You can spot him every now and again. He's wearing the white jersey as leader of the Pro Tour classification, a new competition which has been brought in to bring together all of the one-day races, the shorter stage races, and of course, for the moment, the Grand Tours.
That was Osa fleetingly over the top from Euskaltel. Ruggiano just sitting off the back. He doesn't descend that well, actually, Jose Ruggiano. If he's got a fault, it's going down, certainly not going up. And the Phonak rider here, Tadej Valjevec, is probably a little bit better on the descent. But Para shows no fears here as he continues on his way down, waiting for the finish. We're heading down to Livigno now. We run off the mountains. It's not a mountain top finish, this one. 2,500. There's facing just about 1,000 kilometres left in this year's Giro d'Italia. Oh, this is Emanuel Sella.
Well, you can get a chance to see just how good this descent is. We're just cruising through the town of Trepale. This descent this afternoon is so straight that these riders are touching speeds approaching 60 miles an hour, while further down on the slopes, Cunego is doing a fantastic job there, just ahead of Huffel. Paolo Salvadelli, although he doesn't have any teammates present in this group, does look rather comfortable. He doesn't look like he's going to be put under pressure at all so far.
Cunego's done an awful long ride here on the front, and hats off to him for that. We're watching here the champion of Russia here as he continues on his way.
Kolobnov, he was in front of the group. He's being picked up.
Well, he was in the very early breakaway, but he's coming back like all of them now, Alexander Kolobnov.
It's rather a large group, but it contains all of the major favourites. The only man really losing out here this afternoon is Ivan Basso, who is currently trailing at around about 25 minutes in arrears. And that is rather a surprise, I think, to everybody here at the Giro d'Italia, because that man was the number one favourite before the start of this event.
This guy doesn't let his position relax at all. He just looks so good. He's a very small, compact rider. Continuing on his way now, being chased all of the time there by Osa, I think it is. These are long descents now. This is the way down off the mountains. Remember, we're coming off over 2,000 metres, 6,500 feet.
Very barren up here. It's been whistling cold over the summits of these mountains, with the temperatures dropping to around about 12 degrees Celsius because of the chill factor. And when you go downhill off the top of these summits, it can be very difficult for the muscles by the time you get to the bottom. You can see yourself on these descents going downhill for around about 25 minutes, and that is certainly not all that good because the chill factor really does deaden the muscles. You heat up, the core body goes up to around about 25-30 degrees Celsius on the ascents, but once you start to go down, it really is rather chilly.
I'm just wondering if something like that has caused the problem with Ivan Basso making the descents and catching perhaps a chill, and it's come out 2 days later after his great expedition, and he's had a terrible weekend. Out of the Tour as far as any chance of victory goes now, any chance of a top 30 position goes, I would think, but we'll see.
I think the big
he
decision,
hasn't given up, that's the big thing.
The big decision is whether they bring him out again to race tomorrow, or whether he can recover overnight. Maybe not quite so much physically, because when you're in good form you can recover physically as long as you've been looked after properly, but mentally, when you come to the Giro d'Italia as a man expected to win, then all of a sudden you're way down in the doldrums in 25th or 30th place overall. It's hard to come out and fight again.
Well, I bet it's cold in these mountain villages through the winter here, but they're getting a nice bird's eye view now of the passage of the leader on the day of the Giro d'Italia for the second day in succession from an almost identical breakaway. He's ridden away, except he's left himself a little bit more of a buffer this time. Now they know what he's capable of, they can't catch him.
Well, they're going to remember the name of Ivan Para after this weekend, that's for certain. He's already got one stage victory under his belt, and I think here this afternoon he's taken a serious option on getting himself a second one in 2 days, and that really is a remarkable performance as we go into the big high mountains. Para got himself maximum points there over the top of that climb, and he's still now thinking much more about trying to survive off the front end of the group and get himself another victory. And what a Giro d'Italia that would be, because if they were to win the King of the Mountains as well, I think they would have filled the contract for the team.
6 racing days left after this, apart from the rest day, which will come in 48 hours' time. And it looks to me as though Ruggiano has done enough to win the King of the Mountains, though we still have some rather rough mountains. We go into the Italian Alps. We finished at Sestria, don't forget, before we race up to Milan. We've got the time trial to come as well, and we've got Limone Piemonte still ahead of us, so it's going to be a tough finish to this tour. At 10 kilometres to go, I don't think Ivan Para's worrying about the next day or the day after.
Well, he's banking everything on just taking individual stage victories. This team and these two riders have worked very well together over these big mountain stages. Ruggiano has built himself an almost unbeatable lead in the King of the Mountains classification, and Para at the front always knew that if he was to be brought back by a move, he always had his teammate to take up and launch the counter-attack. Ruggiano just sitting there in second position, very happy just to let everybody else do all the pacemaking. He has got an ideal situation here. He's building himself up an advantage every day that we go into the big mountain passes. This is the summit of the climb, and it's just 10 kilometres to go, and he does, once he gets to the top of this false flat, have a fairly good chance to recuperate as we go over the summit and head downhill slightly.
Just sat at the back of the group here is Christian Moreni, road racing champion of Italy. As he continues on his way, it looks like Labato, I think it was.
Yep, that was Labato, teammate of Juan Manuel Garate, who's ridden well over the last couple of days as well. These are the two men in second and third place in the overall classification. Valjevec in first place there for Phonak, and then Ruggiano. Weighs in at 48 kilos. He's not very tall either, but I tell you what, when it goes to going uphill, he certainly is proving to be a major revelation, and I wouldn't be surprised, Phil, if one of the big top teams didn't snap him up for next season.
Well, quite agree. I don't think Stella Italia will want him to lose, though, because he's their star player in slightly smaller races around the world. And Para is forcing his way in, although he's been around quite a long time. This is without doubt his finest weekend in any bike race anywhere in the world. Valjevec's down there doing a bit pacemaking. He's a known quantity because he was 9th in the Giro last year. He's still a challenger, but a little bit off the pace this year. But as you can see, he's got good form. He's had an 18th overall in the Vuelta, the Tour of Spain. Doesn't win too many races, but he knows how to put things together in a long stage race. And he's doing good pacemaking there. He knows Ruggiano isn't going to help him chase down his own teammate. So this man now has only got to complete the course and win the stage. Nobody's going to catch him.
It always amazes me when you see the style of the Colombian climbers out of the saddle, accelerating, punching, fighting with the bike all of the time. There you can see Paolo Salvadelli looking reasonably comfortable. As we go a little bit further forward, this is Lobato getting out of the saddle, trying to make it that little bit more difficult. They're trying to put time between themselves and everybody else in the group. Moreni seems to be having a little bit of difficulty at the back here, Italian national champion. While
I think Kolobnev just went as well.
Finally reached the summit there. Maximum points for this man. And I don't know if you saw the way he sat down onto his saddle there. I think he was saying to himself, I could do with a bit of a breather. And he will have for a few kilometres anyway.
Well, he's running down to the valley now. Livigno is right at the base of the mountains, and they're going the right way for an easy day. Down. Van Huffel here, who has had a brilliant race.
That's Simone going on the right-hand side there.
Well, somebody better react, because Van Huffel is taking it up.
Pretty sure that was Gilberto Simone. I just caught a glimpse of that dark jersey going off the front, and look at the crowd now. They're going ballistic. They want Gilberto to win. Van Huffel certainly is a major revelation for the Belgians. They'll be getting quite excited about the fact they've finally found themselves a new climber. Let's have a look back and see if Paolo Salvadelli's been able to respond to that as well.
Well, he certainly was slow to respond, if indeed. That's why Cunego's been doing all the pacemaking. He's been setting it up for Simone to try and steal a few seconds away from Paolo Salvadelli. And this is his big movement just before the top, then a demon descent down to the valley below. job done, but I don't know whether he can, and maybe he can here. That's De Luca coming across.
That's De Luca coming across, but the Maglia Rosa is not there. Paolo Salvadelli hasn't been able to respond. He put a big day in to get himself the Maglia Rosa, but now let's just have a look at this one more time. You see, all of a sudden there was a dark blue and pink flash down the right-hand side of the road, and this is the first man to respond there, Van Hoffel. But Paolo Salvadelli, Phil, is not able to respond here, so maybe he's not quite as solid in the Maglia Rosa as we thought.
Well, he saw the move. He looked across at it, and he didn't show any lifting of the pace at all. He stuck there with Markus Foten, who's riding very, very well for Gerolsteiner, the German cyclist. But this is interesting now, because if De Luca makes it, he's got to work with Gilberto Simoni and try and open the gap on Paolo Salvadelli. Bit of a jinx on the old pink jersey this year, isn't there? Because when you get it, you find you're under pressure in the extreme. There's De Luca now. He's up there. Look
at De Luca fighting. He's just going past Van Hoffel, and where is Gilberto Simoni? Can't be too far off the front, but he's opened up the gap. He's launched an attack one more time. There is Gilberto Simoni. These are the attacks that he likes. He's a punchy bike rider. Looking a little bit further back, Cauchioli is alongside Salvadelli, but Salvadelli must make sure that he has got enough energy left to pull himself back on the descent. Let's not forget his greatest asset, Phil, is going downhills fast.
We might need that asset right now, because Simoni is going clear here in the group and doing very, very well indeed, because he's got Garati with him now, so they swap with the places with Lobato. And Garati is living up to his pre-race reputation of a possible podium finish. He's a bit of work to do for that, but he's going to be up amongst the leaders here. He can hang on.
Well, he looks comfortable. He's joined the man who has been so aggressive over the last few seasons at the Giro d'Italia, Gilberto Simoni. And this is why Damiano Cunego was doing so much work in the early part of this stage, trying to set something up. Though I tell you what, Danilo De Luca is riding the Giro d'Italia of his career, because he's leaping across the gap there. He wants to make contact with Gilberto Simoni before they get to the summit of this climb, so that he's comfortable on the descent down towards the finish.
Well, the amazing thing is that De Luca's held the lead in this race. He's won stages. Now, if he can make a top 6 finish, he will be the next leader in the Ciclamino points jersey. So that's his next objective right now. It's open for grabs as well, of course.
There he is. He's right onto the wheel of Gilberto Simoni. He's having an unbelievable ride here. And if the two of them work together, they could change the look of the overall classification once again here this afternoon. Paolo Salvadelli is in difficulty. Nobody to help him at all. He has to set the pace-making on his own, but he's in that little tunnel of noise now. He's not too far away from the summit of the climb.
There is the summit now. Look, he's gritting his teeth here. He knows where his strengths lie. He knows he can descend. We've said it before, though, Simoni is an extremely good rider at going downhill. But this is going to have to be an extreme descent now from Paolo Salvadelli. He's got the time, and he could get back, but it's going to have to be a great chase.
Going to have to be a brilliant chase. I don't think any of that will change the look of the individual stage, because Ivan Parra is still holding on to a very big advantage. 23 seconds the difference between Gilberto Simoni and Paolo Salvadelli.
23 seconds downhill. He's not far off 3/4 of a kilometre, you know, at these speeds.
But he should be able to pull it back, because after all, Salvadelli is the better descender of all of them. Although, as you said, Phil, on occasions when it goes downhill, Gilberto Simoni's not bad himself.
And we're getting demonstration now. It's still 8 kilometres, 5 miles to the finish. As we watch, Simoni knows he's got his chance now. He's got to push it home here. Damiano Cunego was the man that set it up for him with some tremendous pace raking up that climb. And Simoni made his attack just before the summit. Here's the chase behind. Cauchioli is going with him.
Well, he's going to use all of his skills now, right into the left-hand side. As he sees the way the corner is starting to open up, he moves nicely across to the right-hand side of the road, cutting all of the apexes. That is absolute poetry in motion. There's a group in front of him, but that is not the group, I don't think, of Gilberto Simoni. That's a group caught halfway across. Simoni is around the corner still.
Yeah, the Garati's not there, the bright yellow jersey, so it can't be the Simoni group, but whoever they are, he's bringing those back for sure. Meanwhile, the man we must not forget, concluding 2 great days in the Giro d'Italia, and this will certainly be now his second stage win for Ivan Parra. He's off the main sector of the climb. There in the distance is the town of Livigno, and that is where his journey will end today, with another victory on the stage. A call of help here for Cauchioli to come and give him a hand out.
Cacchioli comes straight up there, not scared of doing a little bit of work. All these riders actually have their own agenda. They all want to keep themselves in the top 10 in the overall classification. Ivan Parat now comes at 3 kilometres to go, and at these speeds it shouldn't really take him very much more than 3 minutes, but these guys are still a little bit further down the road. They're just about to catch the group in front, but I'm quite surprised to see that Paolo Salvadelli hasn't closed down that 23 seconds all that fast.
Apparently not. Was not seeing where on earth. Here he is now, and that is Garate hanging onto his tail. De Luca will love this too. He also drives down the hill. 2 against the pink jersey of Il Falco, and they're going to make the most of this, because it looks the way this race is going that these riders aren't far apart in ability this year, and these seconds are going to be invaluable.
Well, I tell you what, this descent is actually not lending itself to Paolo Salvadelli. He prefers a descent to be that little bit more dangerous so he can pull back the time on the tricky technical corners. But these corners are sweeping corners, and all of these groups are going downhill at about the same pace, and that pace is very close to 100 kilometres an hour. And that's why we're not seeing Salvadelli really nail back these 3 men. The man he really wants to catch is the man who's in 3rd place there, Gilberto Simoni. This is a good corner for Salvadelli to pull back a bit of time. You've certainly got to take risks to get round that one.
This is a lovely descent, and in fact for the leader it's all over now. Just a gentle downhill into the plains of Livigno, and victory for Ivan Parat. This is the chase now to open the gap, or rather close the gap to the pink jersey of Paolo Salvadelli. He hasn't lost it yet to Gilberto Simoni, but he's got it. That was the corner, and he's led round it.
Did you see how he went round that corner? No, hardly a touch of the brakes, hardly a loss of momentum at all. He will have probably pulled back 3 or 4 seconds just in that 30 or 40 metres around that corner.
Looks like the road's cracking up a bit down there. Winter is behind us, of course. We're heading up towards the summer. It's been a beautiful day. This man now is riding the long straight road to the line. Ivan Parat, about to celebrate in as many days his 2nd stage win in the Giro d'Italia. It's not going to help him too much overall. He'll still be round about 20 minutes behind when he gets there today. But that's not the nature of this man. He wants the stage win. Flick of the arm. Through comes Pietro Cacchioli. They're driving on. Last kilometre for Parat, and victory will be his.
Well, victory will be his, and he's not slowing down at all. He's keeping the pressure right up on right until the final moment. It's a fast downhill finish towards the line. He is going to give Columbia Selitalia the 2nd victory in as many days, and that is really quite remarkable. You would always expect a different bunch of climbers to go forward and go out on the attack, but that's not knowing this team. Columbia Selitalia, one of the smaller teams on the circuit, Phil, but one of the most aggressive.
Well, Carlos Castro won stage 14 in the year 2001. No Colombians won since, until yesterday, of course, and Parat's now made it a double. Massive crowd here. They will have seen his journey over the mountains on television. Now they can see the man. Now, he took a photograph out of his back pocket yesterday. I suspect of his family and kissed it. I wonder if he's got it with him today. Maybe he didn't think he could do it 2 days running. Terrific result. 2 wins in 2 days.
But what's important now is
time
going to be
nearly 7 hours.
A long day in the saddle, but what's important now, Phil, is the gaps between all of these groups out on the open road. They're in the outskirts of town. This is Gilberto Simoni looking for a little bit of help, wants to go forward with Danilo De Luca. And luckily enough for Paolo Salvadelli, he's got a few friends in his group as well, because that's Cacchioli going to the front, Unai Osa prepared to set the pace at the front of this group. He has to make sure he doesn't lose too much time on the men in front of him, Danilo De Luca and Gilberto Simoni, because he could see himself losing his Maglia Rosa once again.
Well, I admire Simoni today. He knew he had to attack. It was a plan. He worked it with Cunego, and De Luca as well. The ever-aggressive Danilo has also read it right. They obviously hit Paolo Salvadelli when he wasn't feeling too good. He saw the attack and he could not react to it. And now he's fighting to save a few seconds. He might just hang on to his Maglia Rosa, but for how long now? Because Simoni clearly is feeling a bit frisky.
Simoni's feeling frisky, but I tell you what, Danilo De Luca must be feeling pretty good with an individual time trial coming up. This is the next group on the road, Valjevec, and of course Ruyano. Ruyano, I think, will try and get second, but it's not really that important to him. The most important thing is this has been a dominating performance in the mountains again by Selitalia.
Yep. First and second in the King of the Mountains. Ruyano will keep his lead, a massive lead over Parat, who in turn has a massive lead over anybody else. So he's not going to take the sprint Vadovic will take this, and second place for him. He had a 9th place finish in the Giro last year, and he's going to be riding high again by the end of this great weekend. And Riano punches the air because he knows now it's more champagne tonight.
Well, another good day for those guys, but everybody, I think, Phil, is waiting to see what the time gap is going to be like between these three riders and the group behind. And it looks to me as if they're just pulling back a rider who was caught in the middle there, Unai Osa.
Yeah.
He was originally in the breakaway.
I'm not sure who this rider is. It must be... this is Osa. That's Osa coming in now. So are they just behind him? Awful lot of cars are getting in the way. If that's the case, he was dropped on the way up. He was one of the original riders out front, and he should be safe. Big time gaps now, but the time gaps aren't important until that chase group gets here. But Unai Osa riding in his new colours there. That's why I didn't pick him out in the Elis Baleares team. He races up now at around about 3 minutes down on the day's winner. He'll get 4th.
Well, it was a long day in the mountains. The referee there standing out of the car looking back because he knows that the group of Simone is actually boring down upon Unai Osa. They can't really be very far away, the group that contains Simone and of course Danilo De Luca, and here they are, and they've picked up Emmanuel Sella. It was
Sella, they picked him up. Bad luck for him because he was looking for the high finish. Now he'll have to win the sprint. I think De Luca will probably handle that. This guy's a real racer when it comes to finishes. Look at this, they're not going to outsprint him, least of all Simone. Danilo De Luca continues his great Giro d'Italia, and his high podium finish is still likely in Milan. Takes over there, he crosses the line in 5th place. Simone getting 6th. Now the clock has started, and Paolo Savardelli still out on the road. Every second really does count. And you know, Paul, I think they closed in quite dramatically here on that chase.
They certainly have done. They're charging up to the line. Nobody slowing down at all. I think he's going to lose himself around, well, it could well be just inside of 30 seconds as they stop the clock at 3:42.
3:42, so around about, about 20 seconds or so. Something like that, 25 seconds maybe. There's the result on the day. Simone getting 6th, that's a significant one, and De Luca 5th. And he's getting used to the podium now, knows the way up, no problem at all. Ivan Pala, 2 out of 2. Don't think he'll win tomorrow. We return to the flat roads on the eve of the second rest day. But he can have a little rest at the back of the peloton, job done. There's the overall, 25 seconds now as De Luca is in 2nd, Simone is 3rd, Geraghty is in 4th. This is a very interesting race now. Riano has made a top 6 finish as well.
Well, these guys must now be wondering whether or not they can make Paolo Salvadelli tremble, because you know what? He is not that far in front of a man by the name of Danilo De Luca, who is riding exceptionally well. And look at this, Riano has 107 points in the King of the Mountains classification to his own teammate Ivan Paras, 55.
Yes, they had a plan. It took them 2 days to execute it, and they've had a great 2 days. And it's good to see a wildcard team dominating against the top Pro Tour squads. The girls have to bend down to kiss this man. He doesn't stand too high. Let's move on to a flat stage now. Stage number 15, as we head towards the eve of the second rest day. 16 days of racing now. We say goodbye to Livigno, and we ride the flatter valley roads to Lissone. Quite a long way, 154 kilometres. The good news was this was previewed originally at over 200, so they're getting back down a little bit. They're taking pity on the riders now.
Mainly in the valley roads, all the way alongside of Lake Como, Lago di Como, an area that many of the bike riders in this area know very well. Not too far from the Italian border, and they will get down to the town of Lissone. But unfortunately, the weather hasn't been all that clement today.
Now let's hope it's better on the rest day tomorrow, but they haven't seen too much rain. They've had a pretty good tour. These are the situations though in the mountains, the Italian border there, and this is down in the town where the rider's caping up here. Well, this isn't going to help Ivan Basso recover, is it?
No, it certainly won't help Ivan Basso, who's decided anyway to ride at the front end of the main field, which is confirmation, Phil, that he is going to start the stage, and that's nice to see. That is a sign of absolute sheer courage.
Absolutely. But what a good thing, Paul, we weren't going up those mountains today. What would it have done to the tour?
It would have been absolute chaos. 2 kilometres to go. The front end of the main field is not all that chaotic here this afternoon because, once again, it's Fassa Bortolo taking the head of the field. They're trying to get themselves organised, and again The big challenge coming from Eric Zabel there in third position. Eric, come on, mate. You've got to get yourself a win here.
Well, there is no one else left.
I am a big supporter.
Left.
I am a big supporter of Eric Zabel, and he may well be the one to spoil the party here. But Passaporto, once again, they are so dedicated there. 3 riders, first, second and third, and the fourth man in that line is Alessandro Patacchi.
Well, they're coming up. It's been a miserable old wet day. There's not been many wheels turned in anger. The riders had a good battering in the mountains. They've still got the Alps to come. And we've now got a familiar finish here for the flat stage into Lissone. This is where we stay overnight and rest day tomorrow. And it looks to me as though we've got the Patacchi team in full flight. Now, most of the sprinters have gone home, many of them to prepare for the upcoming Tour de France. So Patacchi really just has to keep an eye on the whereabouts, I think, of Eric Zabel.
Well, he doesn't have to look very far, does he? Because right on his wheel there in the pink there is Eric Zabel. Excuse me, I've got the wheel of Mr. Patacchi now that Robin McEwen's gone home, now that Stuart O'Grady's gone home. It's my chance now to try and come out of that slipstream if I can, but maybe at 34 years of age, old Eric Zabel just losing a little bit of his edge.
Well, fifth wheel there is Paolo Bettini in his gold crash helmet, and he's got the lead. It's the first change of leadership in the Intergiro today. Bettini has finally got the better of Sven Kraus. I feel a bit sad about that, because Kraus has led this from day one. It would be tough to beat Bettini now. That's Bettini going on the right of our picture. But now it's big lead out time, and Patacchi's got the head of the race. Zabel's got second wheel. Well, you can't get a better lead out than that. Now, can he get over the top? No. He hasn't got the speed, poor old Eric, and it's second place for Zabel, third for Bettini, the new man who'll wear the blue jersey tomorrow as Intergiro. And a little bit of argy-bargy here. This was off camera. There was in fact a touch of wheels and a crash.
Well, I didn't see what happened there, but certainly they were a little bit upset about what happened on the run. Do you know what has happened, Phil? They've actually crashed into the photographers.
It's after the line.
They have crashed into the photographers, so narrow was the tunnel. Let's have a look and see if we can spot it. Easy win, though, for Alessandro Patacchi. Eric Zabel in the ideal position. 5 years ago, Eric Zabel probably could have come out of the wheel and the slipstream of Patacchi, but not nowadays. Alessandro Patacchi is the man. It's taken him a while to get going in this year's Giro d'Italia, but now he is in absolutely and utterly full flight.
Well, he's finally got into the habit of winning stages. Third win for him, and there's still a good chance, of course, on the last stage into Milan. Not much choice before that, I'm afraid, because we're now back into the mountains after we set off the day after tomorrow. There's Bettini. He'll be in blue in the Intergiro competition. I don't think we've ever seen Sven Kraus throughout our coverage, but he has ridden a great race.
Certainly has ridden a great race, but that's a competition that won't get decided until we get right down to the streets of Milano. But here's confirmation: Patacchi, Zabel, Bettini, Cadamuro finally getting up there, and
lead out man Marco Vello taking fifth, Grio sixth, Henk Vogel's good sixth place for him.
Henk was right up there as well, right down towards the end. Alessandro Patacchi looking a bit more relaxed now. The other sprinters have retired.
Overall, no change at all. 25 seconds on De Lucas. Simoni is third. Sergei Honshaw lies fifth. Cauchioli is in sixth for Crédit Agricole, and Sella props them all up in eighth. But look at the time gaps to the right. This is now a two-man race, but which one will it be? Well, might be a three-man race, actually.
I was just going to say, don't discount Gilberto Simoni. He's well up there in the overall classification.
I was thinking discounting Danilo De Luca, I'll be honest, but maybe not.
I don't think so. De Luca is riding so well. I think De Luca may well do something special. And, of course, let's not forget, he's ridden very well. Bettini now has got himself the lead in the Ciclamina competition.
So he won't wear the blue jersey, because although he's got the lead in that as well, he will in fact wear the Ciclamino, so Kraus might still be wearing that in second. Lugano, 107, plays 55. Go back to anybody in competition, and it's way, way down to Coldo Gil. And there he is. Good, well I hope you all enjoyed your day off in the Giro d'Italia, because now we move on from Lissone as we head to Varese. And this is a ride now of 200 plus kilometres. And this will be another little bit of a day to get the old legs turning again as we now turn towards the finish. There are indeed just 5 days of racing to go. The majority of them are hilly or a time trial, or indeed the last race, the usual gentle ride into Milano.
Well, a little bit of a climb just towards the finish. 13 kilometres to go on the ride down into Varese, which is right on the Mediterranean coast. And of course a good day for the sprinters to try and survive, although as always on these stages, especially after a very difficult day, the race has been dominated by a long breakaway.
Yes, and it might well stitch it all up today, because with the days that lie ahead now, I think it's going to be a question of let's wait for the big showdown, not just the mountains which are still ahead, especially the ride up to Sestriere and into Italy. We go briefly into Turin, but also the time trial which takes us into Turin. That's going to be crucial. So this could be the one day of the Tour, and we haven't had any of them yet, Paul, where a breakaway of riders who don't really count are going to have their moment.
Well, I think it had to be expected, as we are finally getting a nice bit of sunshine once again. On the front, that looks like Christophe Lemaivel of France. These guys have got themselves a fairly good advantage over the main field. I don't think they will be seeing the main field again, but what a great day. It's beautiful to be down here by the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean just so blue, as we look now down at 4 kilometres to go to the finish.
So blue and so nice. And this breakaway now also contains Alessandro Vanotti of Domina Vacanzi. You might have caught a glimpse of him. Christoph Brandt of De Vitamin Lotto. He's supposed to be the climber on that team, but he's been out-climbed this year by Wim van Huffel, who's not in the breakaway. And Fofanov is for the Cofidis squad, and also Frank Schleck.
Frank Schleck could be a nice name to pick out of the bag as a winner. Frank is a kind of rider quite capable of finishing off. He spent a long time in the mountains in the early part of this Giro looking after Ivan Basso. I don't think anybody's looking after Ivan Basso nowadays apart from himself. There's Schleck in the Team CSC colours.
Schleck just coming to the back here. Be a big result for him if he could get it.
Just over to the right hand side there you can see Christoph Brandt moving up. Brandt is a very clever rider. This is Brandt here at the back, number 62. And all of these riders have got a big chance of getting themselves a stage victory here this afternoon.
Well, I don't think the bunch is going to catch up, because the last time check we got was 24 minutes. So there's a huge gap here. There are quite a few riders in between who have been dropped on the climbs, but the peloton is over 20 minutes back right now. So they're saving their strength for a big day, which starts tomorrow as we race on to Limone Piemonte. And that's the day when we expect to see Savadelli and Gilberto Simoni back in the thick of the action. But today, it's a day off for the leaders, and one of these boys is going to claim a stage win in the Giro d'Italia.
It's going to be Christmas for somebody. This is Fofanov coming to the back here, wearing number 33 of Team Cofidis. I would have to say that Brandt has to be probably the cleverest rider in the group. Andy Engels is in the group as well. He's a Dutchman. He's a fairly clever bike rider. It's starting to get a little bit tricky. Everybody's looking over. Everybody's worried about that last-minute burst. The Luxembourger Frank Schleck has moved up into third place.
Fofanov, be careful.
Fofanov's in a good place to launch an attack from the back,
because there's a group of around 10 or 12 riders still chasing at around about a minute, so they can't afford too much finessing here, otherwise they'll be wiped out. Again, nobody of note in that group that's behind. We haven't seen them for ages. This is the leading group.
Well, Vanotti there in the Domino Vacanzi colours, he's not a bad finisher. He could be the man to come up with a surprise, but you know, they're all very nervous here. They know that one mistake at this point could throw the race completely away, and nobody wants to do that, because as a professional bike rider you don't very often get a chance like this, a chance of being in a breakaway situation. This is the group behind. In fact, they've come down to 46 seconds.
Well, they were the names of the leaders, but the gap is 46 seconds down to that chase group, that's right. That might be enough, but they can't afford to just 2 kilometres to go. It should be enough, 2 kilometres to go.
Yeah, but they don't need to mess about too much, because you could lose 30 seconds very easily. Look at this, that's Vanotti moving over to the right-hand side, inside 2 kilometres to go. 2 kilometres should normally take them 2 minutes. However, with all this tactical manoeuvring, look at Vanotti, wait for him to move.
Well, he better move pretty quickly. Is that Frank Schleck who's taken a dive? No, false attack. It was Christoph Brandt, in fact.
Now this is Lemaivel going over the top in the green of Crédit Agricole.
No reaction. Well, that was an opportunist, and Christophe Lemaivel has gone round the corner like a scalded cat. Now they're going to have to try and bring him back, and he's taken his chance, because I guess he doesn't spin. I don't think about him. As Christophe Lemaivel, this could be a great result for Crédit Agricole. They expected it to come from Pietro Cauchioli at some stage, but this might be the surprise, which they were not expecting. They've allowed that break to go. Unbelievable.
And that's Fofanov on the front. That's Christoph Brandt alongside him, looking over his shoulder for some help. But at a moment like like this, if you want to win the race, you've got to not look for help. You've got to take the responsibility yourself, and that's exactly what Christophe Lemaivel did. He went out, he's inside the final kilometre, just gone through it there. He's got 1,000 metres to go. That should take him about 1 minute and 10 seconds, and he's hoping that there's going to be no organisation in that group behind. We're just waiting for him to come out of the tunnel. Seems like a long, interminable wait for him to come out and see if he's still got that advantage. There's one of the referees, there's Lemaivel. He's got around about 6 or 7 seconds with 700 metres to go.
Well, this is going to be, he's won a stage race before when he just after he turned pro in 2001, but he has never won a race at all, and here he comes to win a stage in the Giro d'Italia, but he's still only young. He's only just over 24 years of age, so he has a real future ahead of him now. He was a stagiaire, that's a beginner pro if you like, in the year 2000. First really turned pro in 2001, and now he's got a stage win in the Giro, and he took it well. He hit them when they all looked at each other, and how often does that happen at every level of cycling?
Looks like Christophe Brandt has got himself off the front, but I think he's left it just that little bit too late. He's closing down on Christophe Lemaivel, but Lemaivel, when he turns around this corner, will see the finishing line in front of him.
No way will they catch him now. He's going to enjoy this moment, an unexpected and a great win indeed for Crédit Agricole. What a win to put on your honours list. Christophe Lemaivel snatches it. It was a day off for the Stars today. They'll be in serious fighting mood tomorrow. Christophe Brandt it is, and yes, you should be annoyed allowing a move going like that. He gets second.
Well, he was the man who set it all up, but he was countered, and just coming across the line there, it was Vanotti got third, and not too far away was the rest of the group. But I tell you what, this group is around about 50 seconds behind them on the road, but everybody has lost a lot of time this afternoon, apart from that leading group of riders.
Well, these boys who are split off from the leaders, here they come. Not a lot of fight in them, but they're going to fight out at the lower places anyway. Big lead out here by the rider from T-Mobile. It looks like a Korf, but I think Ongarato might well steal this one on the line, just about. Nearly a minute gone by. They actually lost ground on that little leading group as they ran in towards the finish. There's the celebrations of joy. Not often you get a French winner, and in fact, let me tell you, Laurent Jalabert was the last Frenchman to win a stage of the Giro d'Italia. He did that in 1999, so the first French win for 6 years.
Well, the French have had to wait a long time. That was a well-timed sprint by this man. He waited and he saw the first flurries of attacks, and that was really the only way he could get the victory, by surprising everybody and having the risk taken from out of them.
So Christophe Lemaivel, he'll please team manager Roger Leger with victory for Crédit Agricole today. And the French don't see too many wins in this event. Here comes the pack. It's been a long old wait. There's the clock counting down. We're going to have a little sprint to the front. There's not even any points here for the Ciclamino jersey. Bettini is in there. He will keep the lead in both his competitions at the moment, which will be the race on points. I believe he's kept his lead also in the race in the Ciclamino jersey. All right, there we are. Lemaivel gets it. Looks like a close finish at those timing boards, doesn't it? But in fact, it's 20 plus minutes back to the peloton. And that's where all the leaders are, and that is why overall there won't be any change on the eve of our next visit into the mountains. There's the overall, 25 seconds, all the same. Nobody got any bonuses, nobody did anything. They had a day off, and I think they deserve that because now we're back in the mountains.
Paolo Salvadelli wondering whether or not he can hold on to that very precarious advantage he's got over the next couple of days. Just 25 seconds over Danilo De Luca.
Fourth day in the Maglia Rosa for him.